Hello there, BookTube. Sorry for the slight delay. We're waiting on the fourth rider who hasn't got to us yet. Welcome, anyway. Welcome back to another Friday Reads Live with me and, of course, ShawnDStandfast, and someone who's becoming a rather regular guest on this show that we put on, this little show we put on, Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good. I'm the Horseman of Destruction. Right. Oh, there's Steve.
Very sorry about that.
Don't worry about it, Steve. We just started. We gave it a few minutes, so yeah, you're good then, are you, Greg? Super.
I'm pretty good today.
How about
I'm
you,
living
Steve?
alone for the week. My wife's on business travel.
Oh, okay. So Party Central, is it? At
Time to grow your mustache.
You know, I did the same things I did when she's around.
And how are you, Steve?
I'm fine. A little bit flustered. I had to, at the last minute, I had to oversee the arrival of workmen for what they're calling the job, but what I call summer residents. They're here all summer long, ruining the summer months. So they're moving in the lawn chairs. That's not for the property. That's for them to use because they're going to be here all day long, every day from now until late September. But I didn't know it was today. I didn't think they'd do it on a Friday. I thought they'd wait until 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday or something like that. That seems to be in their rules, but no, they arrived on a Friday.
There you go. And are they literally staying there, or have they got like a camper van outside?
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. The only thing that's missing, and it will be here, I assume, at 7 a.m. on Sunday, is a gigantic dumpster. Sit squarely across the driveway and just sit there.
Okay.
So
whose mattress is going to be the first in the dumpster?
There's a ton of work to be done, but
are they clearing out the basement?
Oh, that would be so nice. Oh man, that would be so nice. Hannah's books just showed me a YouTube channel of a guy who prettifies ugly spaces. That's what he does, and he films himself doing it. And all I could think was, what I wouldn't give to turn you loose on my basement. Oh man, that would be wonderful. I don't know that I'd use it myself, but it could easily be rented. It's got natural light. It wouldn't take much work at all to give it a private door.
Wow. We have a few people in, so I'll just say hi to everyone. But I do want to say that we have
Was I complaining about my workmen to the audience?
Maybe, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we are live, yeah. Maybe they're watching. You imagine they're sitting outside on the driveway, huddled around the phone watching this. Yeah. Hello there. Hi. Yeah, so we have, kind of agenda today. So I won't go through all the comments. We'll try and get through the Friday Read stuff first. So please save any questions and comments until we've got through that. Otherwise, it'll be impossible to go back. Shawn, I didn't ask how you're doing. How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay, man, a few words. By the way, everybody, it's in case you're not aware, tomorrow is Shawn's birthday. Now, I know he's kept it under wraps. He's not mentioned it at all over the past 3 weeks, but tomorrow is his birthday. And I believe, Shawn, you will be having a little bash on your channel, right?
Yes, at 6 p.m. UK time.
Super.
Alive.
And I think before that, you can at 3 p.m. catch a live with Greg. He's over on MJ's channel, 3 p.m. UK time. I don't know what time it is in the United States, but it just showed me as 4 p.m. Czech time. So 3 p.m. UK time and then whatever. So that will be tomorrow as well. Sorry?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. then. There you go. Super. Okay, so first off, before we get down to the meat of discussion, what have we finished reading this week, gentlemen? We'll start with you, Steve, and go that way around. So
well, once again we'll be dealing with a fraction of what I have finished this week, but I have some books here, one of which I just finished this morning. But I read what is this, a forthcoming slim volume of poetry by Maureen McLean. What You Want is the name of this is what it's going to look like. This is the advanced copy. and it did absolutely nothing for me whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. I don't know why. I don't know what more to say about that. I just there's a poem called "So Here We Are," and one of the verses is, "The loon is back alone, no mate, a gray sailboat on the other shore, the mountain gone in fog, the lone kingfisher gone, reading Tom Gunn, oh song your historical throat, looking now for that loon on the lake, not even a boat." A minimal rhyme scheme, but I have no memory of being on that lake with you. I don't know that there ever were two loons. I don't have any idea of the significance of any of this because I wasn't there. I wasn't there and I needed to be. But I also read this thing, which is coming out this is not what it's going to look like, obviously, but this is about the U.S. Army versus the forces of Japan. And it was very, very granular, lots of little stories, which I really appreciated. They were done really well. The author really brings you inside the fear at the time, which was that if something drastic didn't happen, the United States was going to lose 500,000 men island hopping all the way up to Honshu. The Japanese were going to defend every single square inch of ground to the death rather than surrender their emperor. That was the fear. That was the legitimization that Harry Truman used for dropping atomic bombs on two cities, was that he didn't want to do that. Which, the arithmetic doesn't add up, but maybe in his mind it did. That 2 million dead and maimed is preferable, if it's their 2 million, to 500,000 of my boys being shot and killed in combat. Just 2 more, and then I'll be done. We can move on. I just recently got this early critical collection of Irving Howe, and I read through this. There were a couple of pieces in here that I've never read. There are a couple of pieces in here I haven't read in years. And boy, oh boy. At the same time that I got that, I got a much later collection that had all of that and a lot more from decades later, when Irving Howe was Irving Howe, so to speak, when everybody knew who he was, when the critical world knew who he was. This book was written before that. This is when he had made only an academic career for himself, or a career in rarefied journals. And boy, oh boy, does it show. It was so much better to read this volume by itself than to read those pieces in a later volume. Because in this volume, he's making his bones. He's attacking established figures. And you feel it. You feel it in every piece. I mean, I think that feeling would be completely lost if I'd only read these pieces in the later book. And then finally, the last one that I'll do for now is this. I gave this a reread. Nicholas Alexander.
Okay. Yeah, Robert K. Massey. Mm-hmm.
I had this as a mass market paperback forever and ever ago. And when the original publicity campaign for this billed it as a love story. And that's why you should read it, that it's a great Russian love story. And I bought it for that reason. I imagine millions of other people did. I read it. I really liked it. But this time through, boy, oh boy, I was thinking completely different things, mostly centered on him, mostly centered on Tsar Nicholas, and how absolutely weak he was in every way. The whole time you're reading a book like this, you know what's coming. And he doesn't. You know what's coming. You know how he's going to end. And every step of the way, I was thinking, okay, well, but you're not taken in like your wife. You know that Rasputin is a lunatic. You're not completely taken in. You do think there's something to him, something supernatural, but you're not bamboozled. Yet you don't stand up to him. Then when your wife starts issuing troop displacement commands because Rasputin, our friend, tells her to without your authorization, when she is nobody and you're the Tsar, you're the head of the state. The first time she did that, I'm reading the book and I already know what happens. I've already read the book. And the first time she did that, my first thought was, okay, so in the next chapter, you're going to have her executed. And he doesn't. Instead, he writes back and says, oh, Pookie Bear, it'll be fine. Same thing with the overreaching of his ministers that he knows is stoking revolutionary resentment in his people. He knows that, and he doesn't agree with what his ministers are doing. At no point does he say, stop what you're doing or run it by me first. He has total control over the state. He only has to nod in their direction, and they're fired.
I think that comes across quite well in the film then.
The film?
Yeah.
Is there a film of this book?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the film. It's a 1970s film.
Oh, is it really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it's
The whole
based
time
on
that I
that
was
book.
reading it, I was only thinking about the recent movie Kingsman.
And I want to
where
say
Reese
it's Michael.
steals the movie as Rasputin. He's just this horrible caricature of Rasputin throughout the movie. I watched the movie thinking, "Well, this will have lots of fun in it." And he's the only part of it I remember. But even at the end of the story, Nicholas has many warnings of what's coming. All he would have had to do is show a little spine, a little decisiveness, and he could have saved himself and his family. Just, I don't know what I was expecting, because his cousin was sitting on the throne of England and refused to save him. So I don't know that I was expecting strength of character, but for some reason I was.
His other cousin was sitting on the throne of Germany and refused to save him as well. So, you know.
But yes, okay. Well, that's it for me. 2 reads and 2 rereads.
I would have thought you. Well, I suppose you are quite young, but the film was all right, and it had Michael Jaston as Nicholas II, and Rasputin.
Who plays Rasputin? That's the whole key. Who plays
Tom
Rasputin?
Baker.
No.
Yes, Tom Baker, and he does a great job. It's
Oh my
good.
god! My doctor plays the Rasputin.
Yeah, he plays Rasputin in it. Yeah.
He certainly has the face for it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Reese Ifan's fighting with knives is the only thing I think about when I think about Rasputin now. All I think about is that wonderful moment when the good guys encounter him killing Ralph Fiennes, and he says, "Time to dance on your graves." Pure cheese. But now that's all I can think about in this book.
It had a big cast though: Laurence Olivier, Harry Andrews, Jack Hawkins, Michael Redgrave, Brian Cox, Kurt Jurgens, Ian Holm, Stephen Burkoff, Timothy West, and on and on and on and on and on.
Oh, Lord. Wow, I missed it completely.
Well, you're too young, you know. So
yeah, I wasn't yet born in the 70s. I was 25 years away from being born.
So speaking to someone who I'm sure you won't mind me saying probably was around in the 70s. Greg, what did you read this week?
We're doing just finished reading at this point. Okay. I finished The Recognitions by William Gaddis.
What's that?
I heard it's one of those books that, you know, it's quite difficult for some people.
It is, but I absolutely love this book.
What's that cover?
This is a Kindle.
Oh.
Yeah, but actually Alan's got this cover as well, I think.
Yeah, he does. I actually have 3 versions of this book. I have the Kindle version, I have the paperback, and I have the audiobook. So I'm well covered for the record.
Name in front of a painting?
Yeah, that's I think it's the author. I'm pretty sure it's the author standing in front of a painting. Yeah. Al and I are going to actually do a live show on Saturday discussing this book. So it's going to be interesting. I got to read some textual criticism to understand exactly what I was reading in this book, because he has a lot of. Pardon?
You loved it.
I did. I don't think I got everything on the first read through, but I don't think it's a book you're intended to get everything on the first read through. But it's a wonderful read. If you have the time and the patience, it's well worth it. I love how his character names change throughout the book.
What, the same character?
Yeah, well, what happens is there's a main character named Wyatt, and he's doing some art forgery. And it mentions in this book that art forgery isn't forgery until you sign the person's name to the painting. I don't know if that's the real life term, but in the book, that's the way the author described it. And then after he mentioned that, the author stopped using the name Wyatt. He became a nameless character. It's always a he. So you didn't know that it was the main character a lot of the time. And then he quit art forgery to go for Europe. And then someone else gave him a different name because he refused to say his name. So you have to follow what part of the book you are and what name the author is using for his character. And I just thought that was really kind of fun.
Is that part of the recognitions then? Trying to recognize what name?
As I said, I read it once to get it done. If I truly want to understand it, I'm going to have to read it a second time to get all the details down.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was doing this as a buddy read with David Wiley. This is The Wind's 12 Quarters. This is the short stories of Ursula K. Le Guin. She has written some of my favorite science fiction novels. In this collection is one of my favorite science fiction short stories, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. But other than that, I was a little disappointed in this book. I don't think Ursula K. Le Guin is a great short story writer. She has some really good ideas, especially related about anthropology and how groups form, but she doesn't always have a lot of story to her short story. It's just ideas she's kind of pushing around. The only one very early in the book had a lot of story. It wasn't a great short story by any means, but it was a fun story about time travel in Paris.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas and Vaster Than Empires and More Slow, those are the two stories that I could really recommend out of this book. I mean,
did you get that book off eBay, or have you had that paperback the whole time?
I had this paperback the whole time.
I knew it. I remember that, Ron.
Yeah, I bought this decades ago. You say, "Oh, she's a good short," because I read those two stories before, and really, I should have just reread those stories and called it a day. But that's the problem with short story collections: is there's a lot of fluff in a lot of short story collections that sometimes they're just not great stories that. Maybe it's okay you're reading it in a magazine, but once you collect it, I don't know.
So that leads me to a question. We can either answer it now, or if you need time to think about it. Can you name, off the top of your head, a single volume of short stories where every story is good, or every story is great?
Clive Barker's Books of Blood, Volume 1.
Clive Barker's Books of Blood, Volume 1. Wonderful. Sean? City. It's short stories, is it? City? I don't know.
Picked up novel, but it's short stories. No,
okay.
I'd have to really think about it.
Because I've only read one so far, but I thoroughly enjoyed the Ghost Stories of an Antiquary by M.R. James. I enjoyed all of those. I thought they were all good, but hey ho. Mr. Donahue?
The Collected Stories of John Cheever? The Collected Stories of Frank O'Connor? The Collected Stories of Sean O'Phelan? The Collected Stories of Eudora Welty?
Are they all Irish?
No, they're not all. But those are all brilliant. There's nothing wrong. There's not a bad dud in the bunch of any of those.
I wonder why the Irish are so good at short story writing then. See, that's interesting.
Well, it could have something to do with the I'm going to get trouble here about
staying sober.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I thought for a minute you were going to mention the curse of the Irish.
There's small periods where they are sober, so they can write a short story, but they can't do it long.
Yeah, well, look what happens when they do write long ones. You end up with Finnegan's Wake and Ulysses. Sorry, Alan. Right, Greg. Anything else or
no? Those are. It hasn't been a big reading week for me, but those are the two that I finished.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, Sean.
I can't remember what I started with in the week, but I'm pretty sure that I did the Hornblower and the Hotspur, the third Hornblower book, which wasn't that good. It was Forster definitely does not know how to write romantic dialogue or any dialogue between a man and a woman. It was just so eye rolling. And
what is that edition?
Sorry?
What is that edition?
It's an omnibus edition, the Young Hornblower. It's the first one.
Wow. I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's just I needed a reading copy, so I got all three for like less than £3. So I got all 10 or something like that, I think. Yeah. Stories. So that allowed me to do it. But yeah, I enjoyed it to a certain extent, but even the relationship between his first lieutenant had changed from the previous book, and war had been declared at the end of the first book, but then on a third one, it wasn't declared yet. So there was a bit of inconsistency. And then I read a birthday book that was given to me.
What's your birthday? Is it, Sean?
Yeah. By Amy at Amy's Dusty Bookshelf. Once Upon a Tome. It's a memoir, sort of a young guy who starts working at Southern's, a very old bookshop in London that actually started in New York. And it was fun, but if he would have been my employee, I would have fired him and fired half the others that worked there as well.
Boy, that's a better looking edition than the American cover.
Yeah, Amy doesn't think so, but it's the painting isn't the greatest, and they've got a pumpkin instead of a gourd, even though a pumpkin is a gourd. But the guy who's supposed to be, I guess, the author should have a mohawk and tattoos, but I guess the person who painted it didn't read the book or knew anything about it. But no, it was a fun read. There was a lot of interesting things in it, and it sort of was nice to see that there's young people getting into, interested in antiquarian books and learning about it. So, and then something else that was for my birthday was the box set of the Dresden Files, Stormfront. And I really enjoyed this. It was weird because I don't read too much of this kind of stuff. I've read Karnacki, the Ghost Finder, all the old stuff, but I don't read much about fantasy, magic, or anything like that. But everything in here seemed familiar to me. And then I was told, well, it's because he takes little bits from everywhere. And I'm going, yeah, but I don't know those everywhere. So how did I actually know, or this stuff was familiar? It was kind of weird, but it was fun. So I'm pleased that I liked it, and I got 4 more to go in the box set. I think there was 5 of them. Yeah, I think there was the first 5. So that was fun. That was a very quick read. And then, yeah, that took me, because I didn't have a very good reading week. So that took me until yesterday, I think it was, to read it all. And then as a reread is The Maltese Falcon.
Oh.
And I'll be doing a live with Carrie from Literary Carrie on Sunday, talking about it and the film. So yeah, I don't need to say I really like it, and it was a fun read. So I read that. What did I do? Yeah, I read that yesterday afternoon, I think it was. Yeah, so that was enjoyable. And then to sort of, I didn't complete the other thing, so I'll say it completed this morning, was Peril of the Starmen by Chris Neville. It's very short. I would say miss it if unless you really want to torture yourself. It's not very good. He was an interesting writer to a certain extent, but it's not one of his better. It's not one of a great science fiction story either that was written in the 50s. It's about aliens coming to Earth to blow it up to save the universe.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, and then this one I will be finished today, but I have a couple essays to read left in it. That's it. It's about the film. That's it.
Okay. All right. So, I'm still plugging away with Mysteries of Paris, so there's no surprises there. And the thing is, I enjoy it when I pick it up, but it's like other things call to me and I get distracted and whatnot. So I listened to the audiobook of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Stephen Fry as the reader. I enjoyed that very much. And I read, if you remember last week, I'd read the Terracotta Army by John Mann. Well, I went back and I read The Great Wall by John Mann. And there is, like, in the beginning, there is a little bit of duplication, which I suppose is understandable given, the crossover. But it was very interesting. There's some disturbing stories in there, definitely, regarding, people being like mutilated and fed to pigs and stuff like that, which is a bit harsh. And then I read me a new author this week, new to me, by no means new. I mean, she's been dead for years, but new to me. And I actually really enjoyed it. Although, I mean, I think it's their first novel, and maybe it lacked a bit of depth, but I enjoyed it. It was very fast, and that was. If you can see, sorry. See, that's why I prefer the Lenovo. It's easier to hold. Alexander's Bridge by Willa Cather, which was all right. I didn't mind it. So, something new to me, I suppose. And I thought, because I wanted to try her. Or I'm planning on reading, is it Death Comes to the Archbishop, is it? I want to read that. I think it's for June on the Range. I want to do it. So I thought, well, I'll give her a go and, try before you buy, so to speak. She was all right.
Did you read the Great Wall book mainly because the Terracotta Army book subject interested you, or because you knew you trusted the author to entertain you?
Well, it's partly, or mainly, I suppose, for Historathon, because it fits in still with although this one moves through Chinese history more than the Terracotta Army one does, because of course that pretty much ends, apart from like the archaeological stuff, but the story of it ends pretty much with the death of the emperor, which happens in the time that we're looking at. This one moves through to the present time. Yeah, I mean, I like John Mann. I enjoyed his book, but it's been many years since I've read him. I've owned these books for a long time. I mean, you can see they've yellowed, and it's even got some kind of maybe I don't know if it's paint from the wall, probably, but and it even has still the Dubai Airport bookshop sticker on it when I bought it. So I enjoyed his Genghis Khan, which I'm rereading, I think, next month. And his Attila the Hun one. Yeah, I trust him. I like him. He just combines like almost like travel writing, history, and journalism all together, and I like that. And he gives you a lot of like extra information, not just the historical stuff, but he'll give you travel tips, because he says like, it's if you happen to be in this area, it's well worth you taking an excursion to such and such and having a look at this part of the Great Wall, and I like that. And he'll even start talking about films, because he says, like the people told him it was like a legitimate ruin, but it turns out it was a film set for, John Woo's latest film or something like that, right? So, but he's good.
Did the book include any details about the stories, apocryphal or otherwise, that parts of the Great Wall were constructed by immuring living people?
Oh yeah. He does a famous one. I can't remember the name of the character, but some mystic says to the emperor that you have to bury someone alive for every kilometer of wall. And then they said, well, that's not going to sit well with the population. But if we bury alive one man who's maybe worth however many thousand men, that would be okay. So they decide to bury a certain scholar alive, and then the story of him running away and all this. And then there's a really disturbing story. So if you're easily disturbed, put me on mute for a second, about when I forget which emperor it is dies. His wife takes over as regent, as they do, but she hasn't got any children by him, so she wants to remove the favorite concubine and the son by that concubine. So she has the concubine. She has her hands and feet cut off, has her blinded, has her larynx destroyed by poison, and then thrown to the royal pigs, and then brings in the son to look at what she's done, who then goes insane and dies. So, you know, there's all sorts of stories in it, and he's very good at that. But he's also good at calling out the bullshit as well when there's bullshit, and saying, you know, this is a very nice story, however, it couldn't possibly have happened. He talks also about the Lost Legion and what's his name? Dubs. Is it Dubs? The academic from Oxford. He had a great Horatio, somebody Dubs, maybe. He was an Oxford academic who, when doing his reading about China, he comes across this thing and he thinks, oh my God, you know, that must be the turtle formation, testudo formation. So they must be something to do with maybe this Lost Legion, and it sparks this whole thing. And he goes to this town that claims to have people who just don't look Chinese at all, even though it's 80 generations ago, right? And they say, yeah, you must meet so and so. She's the most foreign-looking girl in the village. And of course, he goes there and he's like, you know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but she has like probably one of the most Chinese-looking faces he's ever seen, kind of thing. So it's like, you know, the only thing that marks them out as foreigners is their hair is not completely jet black, for example. You know, so he's like, it's all nonsense, but it's very entertaining. It's very good, and I'm going to read
that approach, the immuring of a body and the building of a wall. I tried that here at Hyde Cottage.
Well, yeah, it's unlucky for you. The builders are going to discover them all, isn't it, when they're doing the basement?
Well, Deb got out anyway, so you know, it didn't end up working. she clawed her way out and wanted to know what was for supper.
So I suppose, I mean, there have been a few comments, but it looks like most people have held off. If you do want to ask some questions, of course, now feel free, as we've gone through what we've read. Alexis says she's waiting for the S&M book read, handcuffs at the ready.
And there's a lot of people to read Firmer. That would be great. He deserves it.
He does.
He's in the New York Review of Books classics line, so he has an audience at least for a few more years. But it'd be nice if people read him instead of just collecting those books. That would be great.
Yeah, I've wanted to read. I've never read him. I've wanted to read him for a long time. I don't have a copy of it though. That's the problem.
Well, you know, should have been. You had a birthday coming up. It should have been on your wish list.
No, which book is it you're trying to read again?
Hang on a sec.
A Time of Gifts.
A Time of Gifts. Okay.
Yeah, his enormous breakout thing.
A Time of Gifts.
We should probably mention, since Sean won't, that in connection with his birthday, he has an Amazon wish list, and it's not empty. Those of you who are going to the birthday bash, if you're wondering what to get the birthday boy, there are plenty of opportunities to do that, literally as easy as pushing a button.
It's true, and it's actually in the description below this video, Sean's wish list too. So you're
modest to mention it.
Yeah, too modest to mention it. By the way, my birthday's in July, and obviously there's no barriers about how far in advance we can mention it, so feel free as well. Steve, when's your birthday?
I have a birthday on April 15th. It's my spring birthday.
Oh, yeah. Like the Queen.
For a year to maximize gift-giving opportunities. Feel free. Not that I need anything. I don't need anything. So precious little I want that I don't get. You know, I don't know what I want. I find out what I want at the Brattle Bookshop. So.
Well, let me add the Lee Firmer book.
You've done it now, Steve.
I think a lot of people would love it. I am always taken aback by how great it is when I reread it.
It's beautifully written and very engaging, and of course, it's fascinating that he's traveling through Germany and this part of Europe in 1933, right? I mean, you know,
yeah. And it's not, you know, you think, well, okay, so the time period and the setting is doing the work for him, but I have 2 or 3 travel logs in this room of people who traveled at the same time through the same places, and their books are serviceable at best, not a classic of travel writing. Whether you end up believing everything that he says or not, whether you do or not, that's an issue that we're going to come across in S&M Journeys, is how much to believe the author.
Well, one I like, who I believe you can't believe, is Tahir Shah. Apparently, I don't know. Is people always say that, but his books are great fun and really nice, and I thoroughly enjoy them. And he's a very nice guy. I follow him on Facebook, and he's always showing his house.
A baseball stadium with people who directly contradict fact claims that he makes. Who say, "No, I was there. I have documentary proof that he's making that up. You could fill a stadium with people who've done that.
Yeah.
I don't know that makes it false.
No.
But still, we don't have any 3,000-year-old records of people who wrote that about Herodotus. just one person wrote about what a liar Herodotus was. That's the only record that we have.
And his dad was good as well, with all the Mullah Nazaruddin stories are always great fun. So, what else have we got? I read Chariots of the Gods and Holy Blood, Holy Grail as a kid, but enjoyed debunking them myself. I still have a copy of 120 Days of Sodom. You've got that. That's on your wish list, isn't it, Sean? Oh, no, it's the film.
The film.
Yeah, the film. So my wish list is populated with out of print and rare books, a masochistic streak that you have. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. What is that? No man can cross the same river twice. Thus we are born anew daily, moment to moment, even PayPal me. Yeah, but no, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a genre that isn't really looked at much on YouTube, and there's so many wonderful and interesting things for us to look at. You know, I was going to send you a couple of. I was going through my books because bizarrely, and it's telling, I suppose, the books I brought with me from England, apart from like these John Manns, because I've been meaning to read them for years, they're almost all travel books. So it is kind of interesting that I do have quite a lot already, and I'd like to read as much as possible ones that I've got. You see, so it's up to everybody else.
We haven't prepared notes about future possibilities.
No, but I will send you some suggestions, and I hope some of them will be, suitable. So,
well, I've got to figure out what Edgar wants a book club, so I got to figure out what to do there. It's been suggested that I just do books that are written by Edgars.
Edgar Awards.
Edgar Awards. Science fiction. Do vintage science fiction.
Well, that somebody suggested horror, so I could do out of unknown horror stuff, old stuff. But yeah, the vintage science fiction, actually, that could work. Yeah.
Well, someone suggested, I don't know, was it yesterday? Michael K. Vaughan put out a video about classics and the vaults from the back of the Penguin, and someone suggested he should maybe do a series about that, and I thought that was really fascinating. I thought about kind of stealing it myself because it was in the comments. I thought it's up for anybody, but
I couldn't believe it when I saw that comment. What do the people in his comments field want him to literally die? He is literally the most overcommitted booktuber in the world, and they want him to do another. Hey, how about a multi-year project?
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
I mean, I am totally overcommitted. I'm not going to start a book group because there are so many other book groups out there that I can't join them all. Why do I need another one to draw away from so many other good groups?
Oh, but you won't be. You won't be drawing away. Potential members of each book club will be deciding for themselves what they want and don't want.
Yeah, it'll be like some people may not like travel books, so they won't do travel. And if I do Golden Age or not Golden Age, classic science fiction, people may not like that, so they'll pick and choose, and
yeah.
And it won't always be a question of the subject matter of the book club either. A lot of people will be in it for the host
or hosts.
Or hosts.
Yes, I was part of an in-person book club and a long time ago, probably 50 years ago. And the only reason that I went was because of the hostess.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only reason that I went, was to hear her talk about her pick. She was the one who picked. It was a ruthless dictatorship. She picked.
And it's really impressive that you were at a book group 50 years ago when you're only 28.
Math is difficult. It's best not to think about it.
I can't wait to see Mark's thumbnails for the S&M book club.
The one he made announcing it is a work of art. Simply put, a work of art. Him and me and the two dogs that are the stars of our shows. Just brilliant. Absolutely. I wish I could do things like that. on my
It's
channel.
not difficult. Seriously, it really is not difficult. It's
Well,
these days.
look at the one he did for the Vampirl and Maypire one for me, with Dracula and me.
It's all
Sean,
click.
the role
It's
he
all,
was made to play as one of the brides of Dracula.
Well, what software do you use, Mark?
I just use Canva, and Canva's got
subscribe?
more. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm kind of lucky because my school subscribes.
Oh, all right.
I brought it to them and said, hey, I mean, but it's not expensive. It's $110 a year, and with that, you get up to 5 people you can put on it as well.
No,
And there is so much on there, and it's just getting better and better. You know, now it has artificial intelligence, and it will actually. Oh yeah, and now it will make. And the thing is, I showed this to the kids the other day, but I wouldn't show them. So hopefully, none of them are watching. I don't think they are, but I wouldn't show them where they could do it. Right. So I didn't mention Canva. I just said, because they were talking about it, and I said, well, you can even make presentations these days. And they're like, yeah, right. What? How? And I said, well, give me a topic. And some kids said, donuts. And I was like, all right, then. So I just write donuts. Give me 10 slides on donuts, including history of donuts and recipes. Boom, 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 boom. There it was.
on Canva.
Yeah, they've just unloaded all this stuff now, and they'll do, and their translation's great as well to other languages. Because I did something and I just said translate it to Czech, and I showed it to one of the teachers, and they were like, yeah, it's fine, no problem. And of course, we're all sitting around thinking, how are we going to combat this stuff, when it comes to them using it. But luckily, one thing when it comes to English language learning within school, I will know, because Canva, like many of these things, defaults to American English, and children here for the time being, still learn British English. So although I usually let things like mom slide because they hear it in films and stuff, there's no reason why they should think traveling would have 1 L instead of 2 when they learn, So when I see those little things, I begin to know that Google Translate or something else has come into play. So, and plus, if the level's really good as well, I know something's wrong as well. So.
Well, there's only going to be one way for teachers to combat this in the States, anyway.
Cut off internet access at school, and you have to do your homework in the schoolroom.
Oral homework, oral defense of your work. That's the only way. Face-to-face oral defense of your work. The way it was done when I was a small child, when there was no such thing. When you prepared a report and then you delivered it. You delivered your report, and it was obvious to everyone in the room whether or not you understood what you were saying. You had to understand it in order to defend it.
After the AI thing came out, I was sent an article. I think it was Scott Danielson that sent it to me. But anyway, it was basically the editors of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, Analog or Asimov, or all of them. They were saying that within the week, they started getting hundreds and hundreds of stories that were clearly written by AI, trying to dupe them. And the funny thing was, a lot of them had the same storyline, and there were over 100, I think, that had the same title. So it's like people were thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have some easy money here."
It'll be a nightmare for them, but I hope they embrace it for their cover art.
Yeah, I have to say some of it's really good. I know Jim's been sharing book titles, and I was doing that as well. And when I put in Lost Illusions, for example, by Balzac, it spewed out some really incredible pictures.
I've been playing with it too. AI art on my channel. Like I did the one for the Agatha Christie. That's all AI.
Wow.
Well, the thing is, the ostrich is not AI. But the guy sticking his head in the sand part, I had to add on as AI. And it's just kind of fun. You really can't tell that those are two separate pictures glued together.
No.
What?
No,
when you use Canva, for example, now with its AI, you can upload the picture. Then you have these magic pens, and so I can like magic pen apart, and then I can use AI to describe what I want to be in the area that I've penned over. So I can really add a lot of different things.
Really?
Honestly, yeah, it's become, and it's all included. It's all included.
I might switch. I've been playing around with Open AI for mine, but you just type in the description and then you get a couple choices. And it charges, right now, I'm just using the free version, but I'm getting to the point where I said, well, I'm going to have to pay for it if I want more, because I'm going to run out before the end of the month. So maybe I'll try Canva instead.
I think once you get it and use it, it really does. It is worth it. I mean, every single thumbnail I make for me or for anybody else, or of course, I do presentations and I do it myself. I don't use the AI ones, of course, because it's quite new. But for all of that, I'm using it every day, all the time. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful value.
Are there limits to what you can create in Canva per month? Like
no. With the AI picture, there is a daily limit for the AI pictures, but that's it, I think.
Okay.
It's quite a lot more than you need. Sorry, Sean, you're going to say something?
You're saying that it's $110 and you can get five people, so you just need to group 5 people together and share it.
Pretty much, yeah. If I was doing it myself, I'd be offering it, but obviously it's not my dime. I can't do that.
The thing is,
now we have 5 people.
I'm pretty sure that violates the agreement that you sign when you pay. For you don't share it with people outside your group. Like I could share, if I bought it, I could share it with my wife. She'd never use it, but legally,
it's called Teams.
Teams.
So
okay.
It's just whoever's in your team, and I think something like this
could be considered a team.
Do collaborations would be considered a team. And
okay.
I don't. And plus, they're quite a good company. They do give a lot of the subscriptions away for free to schools and educational institutions as well. For us, it was difficult to get the free package because they really, again, are only looking more, because it's Australian, I think, originally, looking at Australia, Britain, bigger countries. So they haven't got, we haven't got some of the specifics they require in the Czech Republic, right? For example, we don't have VAT numbers in the same way that fit the standards they use in America or Australia or England. So yeah, these things, so it makes it difficult, but yeah. Let's have a look. Some people are talking about it now. Al says creativity is the meaning and the manifest of humanity, not replaceable.
Absolutely nonsensical. That's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Al can you create a bowerbird's nest? No, you can't. Can you create a living organic symphony that needs 10 other people to participate in it and lasts for 2 centuries? No, you can't. Non-human animals can do that. They don't have to. It's not part of their survival. Sorry.
The bowerbird thing's interesting. Jim says on Russian TV they have images of Trump's arrest using AI images.
On Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Half his face is up in arms. They think he's already been arrested. That's what's actually distracting me right now, is that I'm keeping track of the news today, because Trump's lawyer, speaking in mafia speak, said he intends to fight. That can be interpreted in 2 different ways, and the lawyer bloody well knows that. The governor of Florida, the fascist governor of Florida, said, I'm not going to extradite him. So there's potential for news today. There's a potential.
But you know something, Steve? If Florida does not extradite him, if he travels to another state, they could extradite him. Right. So he's going to be trapped in Florida or very loyal Republican states.
If Florida's fascist governor doesn't extradite him and he agrees to that instead of surrendering, then neither he nor Florida's fascist governor can ever leave the state again. They are felons at that point.
I don't think the fascist governor would be a felon. He's just not. Or is that a felony not to?
Well, he's harboring a fugitive, isn't he?
Yeah, see, that's a felony. That's
okay.
A felony.
I'm off for that.
I think most people outside of Florida would be all for that. Yes, indeed. Actually, most people inside of Florida who
Well,
aren't
what
allowed
about
to protest
federal
and
troops
aren't allowed to
going
leave
in
the
to get
state.
'em?
Yeah, but wouldn't he also maybe be restricted to the counties within Florida he could go to? Because surely there'd be some. Wouldn't there be some Democratic county he could wander into that could keep him there? Because I saw something where they were battling, they were arguing over the rights of the county, the municipality. I think it was in Chicago,
In
the
Chicago,
municipality
yes.
and the state,
But Florida is a fascist state.
the
That
whole
means
state.
man
There's no blue area.
Man is the state. The Florida's fascist governor, what he decides is what the state does.
Right.
Every county, every city, every street, every dog catcher, every individual. And he wants that for America. Yay.
How does that fit in with like the millions of New York retirees? Or are they just less and less now?
They're less and less now. Yeah, most of them don't.
Really.
Most of them go elsewhere.
What
Now,
about-
speaking of fugitive, Sean, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, what about federal troops going in to get him? Like,
well, that's the ultimate picture here. Is Florida's
FBI.
fascist governor's private army facing off against federal troops in the streets of Tallahassee or on the driveway of Mar-a-Lago? That's the farce that this has become. I don't think it's going to happen, but
the thing is, if he were just to comply, he'd go in, get his fingerprint picture taken, and they would immediately release him. They would not jail him over this. I mean, it's a felony, but it's not the kind of felony they're going to toss you in jail for. You're released on bail and recognizance, and then he goes back to Florida. But he's gonna fight it so hard that the people, he is actual risk. If he starts inciting people to commit violence, they can throw him in jail and deny him internet access because he's going to incite a riot.
yes,
But he's done that. He's done that already, and he's got away with it.
Is the two credentials for bail are typically: are you a danger to the community, and are you a flight risk? He's a huge red flag in both those categories. And if he does what I suspect he's going to do, which is incite an enormous amount more violence and enormously more directly, not protest, but fight. If he does that this weekend, and he will, unless people are physically sitting on him, he will do that. Then
why did they not wait? Why did they not wait for him to go to New York on business to announce this? Why did they do it while he's safely in Florida?
The law is supposed to work. The law is not supposed to wait on your business associations. The law is supposed to say once the jury unseals the indictment.
Yeah.
Oh, they haven't actually unsealed it, but so we don't know what's in it. We don't know. Like, for instance, the scuttlebutt around the courthouse is that it contains felonies, but we don't know how many. And right now, I am really hoping that one of the felonies in this is his threatening of the Manhattan DA, which is a 5-year felony, and which is incontestable that he did. The rest of this stuff, what was on his mind when he paid Michael Cohen or repaid Michael Cohen, and a jury can have an argument about that. Whether or not he physically threatened the Manhattan DA is not up for argument. He did it in public. But anyway, that's why I'm sort of looking over, because I'm trying to keep an eye on the news to see if he is saying something ambiguous like his lawyer. He intends to fight. Well, yeah. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well,
yeah, very interesting times, eh?
Yes. The cleanest possible solution would be if he fled the country. But he's such an egomaniac.
Where could he go?
Russia.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Number one place, but he could go to a lot of other. There are plenty. He has access to the whole world. If they don't deny him the use of his plane, he could go somewhere where there's no extradition.
Yeah,
even
but
for an ex-president.
To be honest, a lot of times the countries that have no extradition with the United States are probably not the kind of countries you really want to go to, are they?
No, he's already described them with a particular term.
That's true. Yeah, so probably.
And they remember that.
Yes.
But Mark,
Yeah,
what did you have in store for your 4 horsemen? Did you have an itinerary?
Yes, I did. I wanted us to discuss, and Greg alluded to it earlier when he was talking about his thumbnail, this ongoing, or I think increasing issue, although somebody disagreed with me today and said it's not really a growing crisis, but I think it is, with this continued censorship of our beloved authors, such as Agatha Christie, which Greg talked about yesterday.
Yeah, I might have kicked off a little shitstorm. I mean, I don't think it's anything new. I mean, I picked it up on a Discord channel when someone says, "Why is no one talking about this?" And I said, "Well, I can talk about it." So I got, as I said, last time I checked, I have not gotten any unsubscribers for my video, which is pretty good. I don't think I've gained any subscribers, but the main, should we go over what's happening?
Definitely.
Okay. So there is a movement to clean up the language of some older authors. Previously was Roald Dahl, that made a huge stink. There was Ian Fleming. And again, this is at least for Fleming, it's mostly racial epitaphs, as I understand. Not too much else. For Agatha Christie, again, it's mostly racially insensitive scenes, calling Native people and somewhere in terms that modern people would not use. In one case, there was let's use the polite, I can't say African-American because it's set in a foreign country. A man of African ancestry was smiling and grinning. And they had to say smiling and nodding. So that's sort of, okay, yeah, technically you're not changing the story too much. But my point is that what the author originally wrote is important as a record of history. This is what Agatha Christie wrote. She's writing about people in a different time with different opinions. They were not kind to people of other races. That's just a fact. But now they're going ahead and they're sort of changing it out and making it more polite. And I sort of said, it's like sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich. You're just pretending that it didn't happen. Now, I got a little bit of criticism from Brian at Bookish where I said the sensitivity readers are doing this. He says, no, it's not the sensitivity readers. It's the publishers who own the copyright who are doing this. Which, I guess the analogy is saying, blame the generals, not the soldiers. But the soldiers are the ones who, what?
It's a wrong analogy. When he says that, he's simply wrong. To say that it's the publishers doing it, not the sensitivity readers, is like saying it's the shop owner who clears out the register with a gun to his face, not the gunman. That's just insane. The sensitivity readers would bring the world to the front doorstep of any firm that turned them down with their suggestions.
Well, so it's interesting, and there was a good one, A Critical Dragon, who's sort of
wonderful video. Oh my, he did a wonderful video. Was that just today? That's when I saw it, was today. Yes.
And I'll mention him because he makes some good arguments.
He always does.
He does.
Wonderful thing.
Again, he came with the idea that this is the content owners, the copyright holders, who are trying to extend the appeal of their aging work to broader audiences. Right. And the sensitivity readers are, again, they're just the hired hands that are doing this. Now, my big question is, if this is solely motivated by profit, is what these people are saying, the publishers are doing this for profit, is there someone out there who picks up a James Bond book and reads it, oh, racially insensitive, I'm not going to read any more James Bond?
Well, see, you bring up, oh, sorry, go on.
The thing is, like, is there a profit to sensitize these things? I don't really see where the profit is. I mean, I think there are people, let's just say, with vocal interest who are talking about this and say, well, I think these should be cleaned up. And that is what's motivating the profit. So, well, we could lose profit if it gets too out of hand. It's just easier to clean it up. Not many people are going to know or complain. Because if people really were upset at James Bond and the N-word, they would have a label on the front, newly edited for modern times, or something like that. But they don't do that. It's not late. I mean, there is no way to know that they have changed these texts because they're not advertising it, which means it's not a sales incentive. They're not using this to make more sales. They're using this to make someone happy. That's just my theory.
I mean, you see it with like the James Bond film franchise. People always trying to change it, and this kind of thing. And what I don't understand.
Last Bond film, yes, I would say that counts as a change.
But what I don't understand is, it just shows. How can I put this? If you want, let's say a black female James Bond. Why don't you create a character that is in essence a black female James Bond? Why do you feel that you have to take that and hitch it to something that's already existing and something that already exists? It's because probably that idea put out there on its own might not work. Maybe, you're cashing in on the name or the franchise or whatever. And it just annoys me why you need to change something that is, how can I say it is what it is? I mean, it's just ludicrous to me to take any character and change what it is. Just make a new one if you're bothered. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. And the opposite does work. If somebody says, I want to see this thing, I want to create this thing, and it's essentially a nod to a previously existing franchise, but I don't want to kowtow to that franchise and I don't want to replace it. So I'll make my own as an homage to that.
Yeah.
The most high-profile example in science fiction being the Orville, where Seth MacFarlane decided, I love classic Star Trek, but there's no way I'm going to get into that snake pit, and I would never be given the rights to do it. So I'll do a Star Trek-like show. It's overwhelmingly popular. In a head-to-head battle between the Orville and actual Star Trek, which was hijacked by Idealo, Star Trek Discovery, there's no contest whatsoever. The one brief moment where Star Trek Discovery was put on a cable network where ratings could be determined, it had none at all. The grandmother of maybe one of the blue-haired activists who wrote the script maybe watched it. So maybe one person watched it, but otherwise, no. Whereas the Orville's ratings are really good. It doesn't ever work. It doesn't ever work to do that. If you were to do an homage with, let's say a young black female a 00 agent licensed to kill, maybe you make a generous nod in the direction of James Bond. Maybe you mention that. But the whole movie, the movie is not replacing him. It just is its own separate thing. That might do well.
Well, it's a spin-off. It's the spin-off idea, isn't it? Like in the last film, they had the opportunity. They could have introduced this as a character, and this character could then have gone off on her own adventures and done whatever they wanted her to do, whatever.
Well, aren't there supposed to be like 10 00s in the canon or something? I don't know.
But we don't know a whole lot about them. You're not straining the canon to say that
this is 002 or 009.
Especially in the 21st century. It's not that unrealistic, right?
It's not unrealistic at all. You did not need to do what the activist producers of the last James Bond movie did. I don't want to spoil the end of the movie, but just imagine to yourself, if you haven't seen it, what is the surest way to make sure we're not bothered by the white patriarchy as it is represented by James Bond? What's the surest way to make sure he doesn't bother us again? Absolute. So Bond fans were going into that movie thinking, oh, wow, what action. This is incredible. Daniel Craig I wasn't sure about him as Bond, but he's great in this. And they were coming out of the movie throwing up in their popcorn buckets because it doesn't work. And if you try to make another Bond movie directly following this one, no one will go to see it. Anyway.
And I don't know, have you seen that, Sean, the Orville? I've never heard of it, but then of course we both live. You haven't?
No, it's on TV. It's on things that I can't get, so I don't pay for them.
Oh, Brandy, your one true love, you have once again chosen poorly. Goodness gracious! First of all, it's a toupee. Second of all, he's a stoner. I mean, literally all day, every day. So you must back away. You must choose another true love. No, Al, you have made 2 comments. They have both been wrong. Opinions are not toxicity. Okay? Opinions are not toxicity.
But you see, I don't have a
thing that's been in this is me telling Brandy that her choice of love life is terrible, disastrous. That's all. Opinions are not toxicity. You need to detox yourself from the 21st century that says that they are. They aren't. And Brandy returns. Oh my, she's fighting for her man. Oh goodness.
Steve, you know what I'd bet on the two of you. I'm going to bet on Brandy.
I have to say, I win as well, to be honest. But yeah,
I'm telling you, Brandy, he'd get through a passionate love letter or a love poem. He'd get about 2 stanzas in and then be out of breath and losing interest because he's got the brain of a gerbil. It's a jawbone. It's a cute little jawbone. But don't you have enough cute little jawbones in this live stream? Needing to go afield for others? Honestly.
But I mean, they're doing it all the time. You always have this idea of the universe of these stories. And that's what you could do. You could just have, as we said, another character inhabit the James Bond universe.
To get back to the censorship question.
Yeah.
The Critical Dragon, the point that he made was that this has been going on a long time, and that it is like Greg said, that it is the publishers trying to extend the commercial viability of a property. And I read that. I read comments on his video to that effect, and oh my, I felt a skitter up my spine. Because even if that is technically true, that is so dangerous. That is so dangerous to start making excuses like that. I don't believe it even is technically true. The example I go to in Roald Dahl is not the changing of the Oompa Loompas. It's the changing of what Matilda reads, where we're told that she read Kipling, and that is
Conrad.
And the Critical Dragon's comment was that Jane Austen is better known than Kipling. I willfully blind. The sensitivity readers who insisted on that don't like Kipling. It says nothing to do.
And again, I mean, he said that the editors of Dahl had the choice to accept it. I don't think the editors of Dahl really cared. They just hired someone to clean it up, and they just went through and said, "Okay, let's do it."
Did they?
There's no thought process to it.
Did the Roald Dahl estate wake up one morning and think, we just got this TV deal, so we better hire a firm to come in and see if these books are okay with a modern audience? What publishing firm wakes up one morning and says, I'd like to spend a lot of money today. I already own the properties. I could simply reprint them. But instead, I feel like, that would be a straightforward process.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, if they got that TV deal, they got that TV deal on the strength of the original work. And so it's like...
And here's a comment. Now, I've been in business meetings. Now, I do not work in publishing. I did Medicare IT. But I've been in business with some muckety mucks, and they are tightwads. You go in and say, "Can we buy this new software to help productivity?" And they go, "What's the ROI?"
The ROI, right?
Okay, that means is it going to save me a couple hours a day so I can work on another project and get more stuff done, make more money for them? So who is not buying these books because it has insensitive language? Is there a chart that someone brought to a muckety muck saying, "Here's the sales of Dahl going down"? So you say sales are going down, 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 and that's because of racially insensitive language. Here is a chart of sales going up with sensitivity added. I don't know if those charts, but you can imagine those two charts and bringing it for the muckety muck. Say, "See, you will make money if you put sensitivity in the books." Is that true? Do you see that as, that would be a viable reason if you're going for some project saying, "This software is really old, the productivity is really bad, but if you get a new piece of software, you can see the productivity." That's something you could believe, at least in software world. I don't buy it for the written world of sensitized language. I think there are other issues.
The funny thing is, you go back a couple of months, and the Guardian has an article saying how woeful children are at reading, and they're not reading anymore. And perhaps that might have more to do with the fact that Roald Dahl isn't selling rather than the language. The children themselves don't care. And, it's up to parents to explain to kids, okay, these days, when I was a kid, it was all right to, look at Fatty over there and call him Fatty. That was all right. But now you can't do that, right? So
there's no way that I will believe a Critical Dragon. I doff my hat to his thinking abilities, but there's no way I will believe that the rationale behind changing Kipling to Jane Austen was that Jane Austen is a better known writer. It's that the sensitivity readers don't like Kipling. And if you change the racial epithets because they are insensitive today, and you say only a bad person would use them, so we're going to get rid of them, and you change Kipling in the same text, you are certainly saying only a bad person would like Kipling. There's no way to avoid that inference.
It's interesting you say that, because that's how I feel with this whole thing. Like, whether it's talking about the, what is it? I don't know why they call it appropriation. I think misappropriation sounds better. The whole gender misappropriation, all this kind of stuff. And what happens is, if you talk about it, if you happen to be against what these people say, they shout you down, they make you feel like you're some like Nazi, basically, because they have this, I was talking about it before the live, they have this absolutism where it's like, if you don't agree with A, then you must believe B. So if you are against the censorship of these books, you must be a racist.
Right.
That's how they look at the world. And it's like, well, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, because, it's got nothing to do with that.
It doesn't. Yeah. And I am pretty sure that most of us, at least here, are probably politically left. Mostly.
Well,
for most issues, probably politically on the left side. I know I am.
These days with the big shifts.
But, it's... And the thing is, are you really helping people by changing the language? Imagine a child who is reading Roald Dahl, all sensitized and nice, and they read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all right? And then they go get an older version, and they go, huh? What's going on here? Or if you're reading James Bond, and you really like James Bond, and let's say you're of a non-Caucasian race, and you're reading him, and it's all nice, and you read the first one, and then you go to use bookstore, and they have a stack of the old ones. Okay, they might not have the old ones anymore, but you get an older version, and you go, why is he using this bad language? All of a sudden, you're breaking things. I think you're making the situation worse by covering it up, and then revealing later that, well, we just covered it up.
Well, I think what's interesting is especially if we also look at it in terms of these misappropriations, is that you can bet that a lot of people would have a go at Kipling, because they'll say, how dare he write about these things? But of course, he was born in India, right? And if you say, oh, it's different, then how is that different? How is that really different from an Indian born in Birmingham to Kipling being born in Bombay?
There's also a mountain of nuance in his books about imperialism. There's a mountain of...
I admit, of course, that stuff, but that's stuff that we as adults make up our own minds about, or we talk about with our parents when we're children and work out for ourselves whether things are right or wrong in society, right? But the problem is, you can't say that he doesn't have a right to write about Indian things because he's culturally misappropriating it if he was born there, surely.
As far as I'm concerned, there is no chance whatsoever that these publishers are acting on their own. They're acting because they're being threatened. And the only reason I don't know that for sure, the only reason that I say that is because the people who form sensitivity reading groups and companies are the people who threaten. That's what they do. That is what their MO is elsewhere. I find it hard to believe that once you mass them together in a building and make them incorporated, that they'll suddenly say, well, we should make this a conversation. I find that very hard to believe.
Who are these people? Well, I mean, I'm thinking it must be the right encouraging this to build up their own support against this.
Far left.
Far left is doing it. The thing is, in this country, we have the far right. and they want to ban books because they talk about subjects like LGBTQ, and we don't want to discuss that, so we're going to ban them. And then you have the far left, who want to make sure that you are adhering to their political philosophy. And I think it was R.L. Stine in one of the comments say, I actually think the changing of the text is actually far worse than banning it.
And he's absolutely right.
They're two sides of the same coin, and you're going to upset a lot of people by saying that we both sides have extremists, and both sides are quite willing to enforce their views on other people.
Right.
And you can't, it's too far the realms of possibility that it couldn't be encouraged by the right in order to garner support for their causes.
I don't think the right's that smart, Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I suppose.
No, the
right
far right
there.
says do what we say. The far left in this country says think what we think. So
now,
if
Sean,
change is being done to books, and it's to change the way you think, then it's not the far right. They ban it or burn it, but they wouldn't bother to change it or try to change it.
Now, Sean, you're being pretty quiet on this, and it will come round and affect you because a lot of authors you like. Well, I suppose the one saving grace to authors that, especially Sean and I like, are so unpopular anyway that nobody's going to care anyway about changing them. Whereas these ones at least are quite popular. But Sean, what do you think about it all?
Bullshit.
Okay, thanks. So that's for the sound bites.
So much of the classic science fiction that Sean and I both love could easily be called by censors, by Twitter blue-haired moralists, as intergalactic colonialism. Just look at Forgotten Planet. Look at the ending of Forgotten Planet. It is pure colonialism. That's what its enemies would say. That's what people who haven't read it, who want to ban it, that's what they would say.
Let's have a look at some of the comments because they're all kind of related now. So I fear it'll make kids far too sensitive and weak-minded instead of teaching them to think properly. Kipling's father is almost solely responsible for saving the history of the Indian continent, and Kipling is adored in India. See, this is the interesting thing. Kipling is liked in India. P.G. Wodehouse is loved in India. All these so-called problematic people, quite well liked in India.
You and I have repaired our relationship.
Yeah.
No comment. You have repaired our relationship. You're entirely right. Kipling is revered in India, and that's because of what he wrote, not in spite of what he wrote. All is well between us. I welcome you with open arms. Until you step out of line again.
Are sensitivity readers culturally appropriating old literature? You see, yeah.
Mark wanted to talk about cultural appropriation.
Honestly, the whole thing annoys me because I don't understand how you can possibly be a writer of fiction if you can't imagine anymore. If I have you see, the whole Elena Ferrante thing I found fascinating was how literally people were saying, well, if she is a he, then the work's rubbish. And I'm thinking, how the hell is that possible? If you read the book, you liked it, it spoke to you, it makes no difference. Surely it makes no difference. I can't understand it.
The reason why people spin around and around like whirling dervishes on the subject of cultural appropriation is because cultural appropriation does not exist. There is no such thing at all. In even the most extreme example that you can come up with, it is only a question of execution. All the world is your playbox. You are not restricted in what you get to write.
So as a 40-year-old man, I can write a story about a female teenage lesbian from China, and that's okay.
You can, but it wouldn't be any good. You may not be. The thing is, if you authentically knew about Chinese lesbians, whatever, and you wrote an engaging story, I think that would be fine. Now, the thing is that you might make some mistakes that a real Chinese lesbian would not make. And someone's going, you're way off the mark here.
Yeah, but that's a question of my poor research or my poor whatever. Not me trying to offend anybody, maybe.
No, but if you actually did your research and you presented it in a way that was authentic and realistic, assuming you're going for realism in a book and not some sort of weird fantasy, then that would be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like...
But the thing is, when they talk about culture appropriation, what about non-Caucasian authors writing about Caucasians?
Nobody ever cares when it's that way around.
I'm thinking like one of my favorite books is like Native Son, for non-Caucasian. I just love that book. But there are some Caucasian characters in that book, and it would not exist without them. And he did a fine job presenting them in a way that I think they would have really acted it. So he did a good job. So why is the reverse not possible?
Yeah. Yep. It's a comment that was made at a literary gathering a couple of years ago. Somebody mentioned Marilynne Robinson, who's widely regarded as one of the greatest living authors in America today. Somebody said, if she did a lot of research, maybe watched a documentary or two, maybe inspired by a niece or a nephew, and decided that she was going to write a 600-page novel completely inhabiting the personhood of a 40-year-old female slave in a southern plantation in the years leading up to the Civil War, but not ending with the Civil War. So the woman is a slave at the beginning and she's a slave at the end. And it had all of her texture and intelligence and nuance. And everyone in that room agreed that Marilynne Robinson would not be able to publish that book under her own name. No publisher would take it. They wouldn't even want the trouble.
I just think it's a shame nobody's sticking up for all the aliens that have had their culture misappropriated. But I think Jenny's got a good point here. It's like, yeah, you find that some things are just shared around the world. Robin Hood, King Arthur, people use them, do what they like with them. Generally, nobody cares. But you see, is doing that change we're talking about with James Bond, is that some kind of gender misappropriation or,
Well, people do it. I mean, I gave up watching Doctor Who with the original series. We ended 90s, 80s, somewhere around that. I've never seen the new ones, but I've heard that Doctor Who got a sex change at the end, one of the last series.
You've never seen any of the
new one?
Never, any of them.
None. Only the originals.
Wow. Well, you spared yourself a lot of heartache. That's for sure. Yes, because the Doctor regenerated. The 12th Doctor regenerated to a woman.
Right.
By Jodie Whittaker, who's a competent actress, but she was given nothing to do in the series. And fans howled in protest. Some for the wrong reasons, some for the right reasons. And then the showrunner wrote an episode called The Forever Child. And that succeeded in making everyone howl in protest. Everyone. Because in the Forever Child, it is revealed that the character who eventually becomes Doctor Who discovered a child abandoned outside an interdimensional portal, and that child had the ability to regenerate. And this character eventually figured out that regeneration ability and imparted it to the Time Lords, and that therefore the Doctor has always been Jodie Whittaker. So William Hartnell, the first Doctor, nope, sorry, afraid not. The whole fandom went up in flames, and the Doctor Who viewership, which had been struggling after the introduction of a female Doctor, dropped off a cliff. No one watches it anymore. After that episode, they announced that a beloved creator was coming back to the show, a beloved creator from the pre-New Who era. And when they went to do news junkets, the only question from the audience is, are you going to retcon the Forever Child? We don't care about who the new Doctor is. You have to get rid of that episode. You have to have someone on camera say that isn't true. Otherwise, you have invalidated the childhood and the young adulthood of every single person who's ever loved the show. William Hartnell is the original Doctor.
Yes.
Well, not anymore. Not according to the show's current continuity.
But the thing is, why did they feel they needed to do that?
For justice, political correctness.
I mean, I guess you could say they're aliens, and there have been stories of aliens who don't change gender. I mean, I suppose it could have fit, but
no, it's the same reason that that in Star Trek Discovery, the main character, the female character, is perfect at everything. She's better at everything than anyone. The only reason she doesn't run the engineering department is because she's too busy running every other department. It's the same reason in Rings of Power that Galadriel is suddenly the reason why we have Rings of Power. She's suddenly the person who thinks it up. She's invulnerable to volcanic eruptions, and it's her rejecting Sauron that makes him the Lord of the Rings, that makes him evil and sends him to Mordor because he's an angry incel. All of a sudden, the whole of the Lord of the Rings is because of this one character.
There's something seriously wrong there, and I would get as a man, I'm starting to get a complex about this. I'm beginning to think we're not liked.
No, it's only 12 psychos on Twitter that don't like us, but they really don't like us.
Sean, what about silent films? Are they in danger of being, do you think, being cut out or censored? Or
I haven't heard anything. I think there would be huge uproar, and it would happen because they're very small companies that put out quality silent films, and they just wouldn't do it. I don't think they would.
Oh yeah, the companies who reprint these things in deluxe editions and everything are invulnerable to market criticism. They're marketing to a small group of fans.
Yeah,
good for them. I wish I could convey that message to Marvel and Sony and Gillette and every other multi-million-dollar corporation. You are also invulnerable. Why don't you act it? It'd be great.
Yeah, but there are obvious.
Earl Stein had his work censorship right in front of him. He isn't even dead, and he objected to it. How on earth is that defensible? I mean,
he wasn't even told. If I read the article, he was not told that they did it. They just did it on his own.
He realized that his books were being sanitized and that he was, by implication, being called a bad person. And
doesn't he own the copyright?
Well, apparently not. I mean, I'm sure that the tack that Critical Dragon would take is that his books are the property of his publisher, that they're a product, and that
we've inspired someone to anger. Elizabeth.
What?
She's gonna make a video.
Well, Elizabeth, when you
railing against us.
Elizabeth should. I mean, I'm sort of curious. I mean,
yeah.
Video, please don't defend censorship. I've had it now for booktubers.
Maybe there's something wrong with us that we can't see or even imagine that we said anything wrong. I mean, it's like common sense to us.
We're not being racist or sexist again, as far as I know. I mean, we're just saying that people are overtaking it, but okay.
Yeah, but make the video. We'd like a chance then to.
I think it's better with an open conversation. I mean, I disagree with some of what A Critical Dragon said, but his video was better than mine, even though I disagree with him. I mean,
creeping accommodationism that I didn't like in his video. The thoughts, everything was well thought out, but there was accommodation going on there when this is not what we should not be accommodating these changes. Kipling to Austen is bad enough, but for R.L. Stein to be changed while he's still alive and watching,
that's harsh, isn't it?
Yes, and it perfectly proves, I think it perfectly proves my point, which is that absolutely nothing is safe. And that it's being done for moralizing reasons, not for financial reasons. You are clearly being told that if you like Kipling, you're a bad person.
Well, I'm a bad person.
I just want to see the proof of that there's a financial benefit to it, that they're actually seeing better sales, that you can have a correlation between changing of the text equals better sales.
But there isn't. The opposite has been demonstrated a dozen times. You only have to look at Hollywood. Every time it's demonstrated, the new Charlie's Angels, the new Ghostbusters, famously, that got someone elected president, the new Terminator. You have to just go straight down the line. If it's done for this kind of reason, fans reject it. Audiences just in general reject it. There was I forget the name of it. There was a kind of a Charlie's Angels type all-female action lead star, where they're kung fuing and having all sorts of adventures, just a couple of years ago. I don't remember the name of it, but audiences were interviewed when they were coming out of it, and the young women who had gone on dates with their boyfriends, the ones of them that weren't interviewed telling their boyfriend, "Don't worry, baby, I love you," because that had been called into question in the movie. The ones who weren't busy doing that were laughing their asses off that a 110-pound woman could just beat up a whole bar room full of guys just because she's covered in plot armor. They were laughing their heads off at it. So.
Well, now, wait a second, Steve. I've seen plenty of stupid American movies where a guy beats up a whole room of people, and there's no, okay, even if you are an expert at hand-to-hand fighting, you're SEAL trained, if you're going up against three guys with average training, you are almost certainly going to lose. Now, maybe it's four, maybe, maybe someone can get 5 or something, but I'm not an expert at hand-to-hand combat, so I'm going to say, but generally speaking, more people are going to beat up on one person. And they're not polite. Now, if you remember the old Kung Fu movies from our days, you'd have the Kung Fu person, and they'd fight the Kung Fu person, and these two guys standing in the back waiting for their turn to fight. I am willing to bet in a real fight, one of those guys would go to the back of the guy and clobber him in the back of the head, while the other guy's fighting him up front. Just my opinion.
I don't know. So, Sean, what do you think? You look like you had your share of bar fights back in the day.
Well, I got stabbed once, so but the other person went to the hospital and stayed in the hospital longer. Let's just put it that way.
I was thinking, was it a video you put out yesterday? You talked about when you got hit by a car, and every time I listen to anything from you, Sean, I'm thinking, Jesus, can it get any worse? It's like, Jesus Christ. Oh my goodness.
Well, that happened twice, but
Jesus. That's why you don't go out, isn't it? That's why you stay in. It's like, if I'm in here, nothing can get me.
He doesn't go out because of
shot, stabbed, run over.
Well, I haven't been shot, but I've been shot at.
And you're not even an American. I've never been shot at. I'm feeling a little slighted by my countrymen that they're not shooting at me.
I was a security guard for a while. That explains.
Okay. My goodness. Oh my goodness. Alan says they edit older philosophical books. They can republish and extend copyright. Andrew says yes, copyright extension is a big factor in all this. Aaron says beating
that Critical Dragon made that I really liked is that is absolutely true. It is a critical factor.
A man being up with you guys is easier to suspend your disbelief than with a woman doing the same.
I agree.
Well,
in the military up here.
In the video for the Storm, the first Dresden book, it just sort of dawned on me where the way he describes the female cop in there is a guy with breasts. It's like very masculine, and it's not that I've read a whole bunch of books that have what people call strong female characters. It's in films, and usually when they say it's a strong female character, it's basically a guy, but they've got an actress doing it rather than a female being strong on their own. And that's what this kind of thing is. It's always women playing the man's part, but they're women, so therefore it's a strong character.
Sean, it's really good that you brought that. I did a tag once, and the question was, name a strong woman character. And I remember Michael K. Vaughan mentioned one of these fantasy women with a sword or something who could kick butt, typical action hero. And I went for a totally different take. It was the book Valentine by Catherine Wetmore. Maybe Steve read it. But it is essentially set in Texas, I think in the 80s, where a Mexican girl has been raped by a white man, and the town doesn't care. But one woman stands up trying to defend her, saying, you will go to court and get your day in court. And that's strength, because you're standing up against the whole town who's basically saying, oh, we don't care. And you say, no, raping a girl is not right, even if she's Mexican. You don't allow that to happen. So that was my nomination for a strong woman character. Standing up for your principles and doing the right thing is much better than fighting off demons with a sword.
There's believability, and then there's believability.
It's like Betty Smith's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. The mother in there, she's not beating up people, but she's stronger than anybody in that book.
Whereas in the scene setting, in the atmosphere setting of that latest Charlie's Angels movie adaptation, one of the female characters is in a bar fight at the beginning of the movie. And at one point, when she's turning and she's not guarding her rear, a man who's probably 15 feet tall clocks her across the face. And she has one of those cool Hollywood Clint Eastwood things where she brushes her hand across her mouth. When, if that had really happened, the force of that punch would have reconstituted her into her biological components in a little chemistry kit. There wouldn't have been any bones or blood or tissue anymore. It would simply have been biological components. There wouldn't have been anything left at all. You have to watch that. She's like all of 5 feet tall. And you have to watch that and think, well, no, I'm not allowed to protest.
But given the mental capacity for, some young people these days, you've got to wonder how many young women have gone into bars provoking bar fights because they think they can take them on.
Like what Greg and Sean are both saying, there are ways to do this that don't insult the audience with all sorts of pandering. Think about Sigourney Weaver in the climax to Aliens 2. There's no magical plot armor there. She earns her victory, and it's physical. There isn't anyone who isn't cheering there, but
well, the thing is, part of the problem is just in movies in general, they don't present anything realistically. They always have to have the amazing bar fight with gazillions of people, so you can be cheering for the hero for 5 minutes as they kick their way through any number of foes. That's what they really want.
I prefer the unrealistic. Oh,
right.
Man, you leave my boopable nose out of this. I prefer the unrealistic. I spent a whole month watching 65 over and over and over and over again. It's a new dinosaur movie. And now I'm watching over and over again the new War of the Worlds movie, which has some visuals like you wouldn't believe.
War of the Worlds?
Yeah, I don't know when it comes out. But it's the visuals of the tripods and the death rays are unbelievably good.
When's it set? Where is it set, and when is it set?
It's set in relatively present day. You've got a plucky cast of multiracial high school students who say,
"Oh no, not high school students
in America."
It's kind of the Power Rangers faces off against the. But the establishing stuff, all the 90% of the movie will be just an adaptation of War of the Worlds, and it's unbelievable, just unbelievably good, and also in a couple of crucial ways different from the Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds. It is a very different death ray. It is a very different set of tripods, but the visuals, oh my, the audio is the same. The noises that the tripods make are the same, but no. Andrew is talking about H.G. Wells sensitivity readers. Oh no. Yes, of course, because the conclusion of the War of the Worlds is a direct insult to people who are immunocompromised. That's how they win. It's because so I guess you think that's okay then.
Oh, spoiler alert, Steve. Come on.
I didn't say what happens. But
why can't they make a really good War of the Worlds set in Edwardian times? Like a really good one, and there never has been. I want one that
would be great. It would be absolutely great. But it's not what Hollywood would do.
It's not what movie makers do.
The BBC did. I think the emphasis there was on really good, though, wasn't it? Yeah. they at least said it in Edwardian times. So.
Jenny Parks asks that surely I have a problem with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In every generation, there can be only one Slayer. We are told that Buffy is more powerful than a normal human being. We're told that many times. That's okay. All you have to do is make a nod in that direction. But you can't tell me that a
She
5
wasn't
foot
being
tall
overwhelmed.
supermodel can clear out a bar room. All you have to do ahead of time, if you want me to believe that, is say she's the chosen one or whatever. Yes.
Hemingway, I would say, is just forget about him. That's all.
Well, Al Ohm, right? You mentioned Hemingway would need to be rewritten, but the amazing thing is that these sensitivity readers that force the changes of Matilda have not read Hemingway, obviously, since they say that Matilda is reading him instead of Conrad. Obviously, they haven't read Hemingway. He's up to his eyeballs in anti-Semitism.
Matilda.
Oh, here's MJ.
Didn't Mary Shelley write a little novelette called Matilda? That wouldn't go over well today. You have to know what about.
Well, I think MJ has her comment, women can be physically strong if they train. If they go against a man who is trained, on average, the male will be stronger. Now the thing is, you will have some women who will be stronger than some men. That's absolutely true. But on average, you're going to have the strength in them.
Or
on average,
90% to 10%, or 90% every time. The blue-haired far-left activists on Twitter who say there is no biological distinction between male and female. I never know what to say to them.
Did you read about it?
The out-of-shape man in the world has 20% more upper body strength. He's not going to live.
Someone says archaeologists cannot tell if bones belong to male or females. And now I'm going, I had anthropology, and I said, yeah, I think the bones, you can tell. I mean, I suppose you need a certain number of bones. Not
We've got an archaeologist. We've got an archaeologist here.
Right here in the discussion. You ever mystified by that?
No, you can, like, even from the skull, they can tell, or pretty, if it's got a big enough piece or pieces, they can know. And especially,
is that because women's brains are smaller?
Sorry.
And I'm trying to get Brandy to punch me. That's all. Is that because their brains?
You see, the funny thing is, earlier on we said that all of us would put our money on Brandy. So there are cases.
I'd still put my money on Brandy.
She's the chosen one. But so they can then, Sean. Yeah.
But you can't say that anymore. That is just...
No, you can't say it anymore.
Why can't you say that?
Because you don't know how they identified.
You're kidding.
Simply true. You don't know how they identified. There's a strong movement on now in American academia to add that kind of qualifying language to all known historical figures. We cannot refer, in this history of medieval England, we cannot refer to Eleanor of Aquitaine as a woman because we don't know how she identified.
I go back to my earlier statement. Bullshit.
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, I suppose it's true, actually, because we see it with Elizabeth I, don't we? I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king.
Yes, Liz was not helping things any.
Well, like the pharaohs, a pharaoh could not be a woman.
But there were a couple, weren't there?
Yeah, they wore beards.
Yeah.
And you see, what will they do with that speech by Elizabeth I now? The fact that she's even saying, I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, so...
Now, are they saying that there is no biological difference? I mean, because the one thing I brought up is like the trans women are real women. You all remember that one?
No, I don't know that. What's that?
Well, they said, are trans women real women?
That's their motto. That's a slogan. Trans women are women.
Now, the problem is, I actually encountered this as I was a computer programmer, which is going to seem very odd, but I worked for a healthcare company. And healthcare companies are allowed to dismiss charges for non-essential procedures. It's an American health thing. So we had a member who was, 55 plus. The gender was listed as F. Okay. And they rejected a prostate exam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because women don't have prostrates. So that's an unessential exam. Well, the director of the claims department brought the IT department and says, I want you to fix this computer code. This is a trans woman. She's absolutely eligible for the prostrate exam. But somewhere deep in that computer code, there is a piece of code that says, if you are an F, you don't get a prostrate exam. You know?
Tricky.
What?
Tricky, isn't it? These little things.
professionals
It's
in
something
New
you
York.
would never think about. But of course, they probably still have a prostate, and it needs to be.
It absolutely needs to be examined on the doctor's scheduling. Absolutely.
Health professionals in New York are instructed now that when they are told that a patient is pregnant, they have to ask, is it a man or a woman? Which can we swing the mic back to Sean for that one key word?
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
I misread James's thing there. They can tell by skull shape or penis is what I read, but I didn't think that was going to come through.
Who are you to judge, Mark?
Well, that's it. That's
How
true.
awful. You're on the wrong
That
side
is
of
awful. I am.
Leave the room. This won't age well.
I'll leave my own chat. I'll just let you guys carry on without me.
Yeah, but what happens when, like, they find what the Iceman guy that they found that out of the Alps, I think it was. But this happens a lot of times where they get unfrozen, so you get an Iron Age man or an Iron Age person, but somebody comes along and they collect genitalia, so they've lopped off the person's genitalia. But what is that person then?
The person who had it lopped off, or the person who does the lopping off?
No, it's a frozen body, right? That's 10,000 years old, or maybe not 10,000, whatever 1,000 years old. And somebody comes along, because there's collectors out there that collect penises and genitalia.
There are?
There are.
Yes, there are. And that on that at least a few occasions, when by the time experts get there to excavate it, there's no genitalia.
So what are they called? Like phallophiles, or?
I'm sure that the people who lopped off the genitalia were only trying to prolong the person's commercial viability. Really, they had the best of intentions.
Let's check the comments quickly here. You totally destroyed my comment. I was in the middle of creating a fabulous smarty pants comment. Some people would say,
pants here, Missy. Even though I'm not wearing any, I'm smarty pants here, not you.
Some people would say a traveling super hottie surrounded by dogs counts as the chosen one. Jordan's called Tamar Mepe King Tamar. I'm assuming. Yeah. Stick to books is a good mantra, safer. Well, yeah, but the problem is it's not safer anymore, is it? You know, and it's because of books that we're talking about this. Iceman was lactose intolerant, carry cannabis. Pregnant person. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're talking about the people who edit genitalia here, but health nuts. Animals go after the genitals first. Good eat. So that's maybe why they've gone. Okay. Yeah. I think he means Steve nods knowingly rather than Steve knobs knowingly, but it could be.
What do you talk about? When you talk about stolen genitalia, does anyone remember the novel Vernon something by John Vernon? Peter Doyle by John Vernon, about stolen genitalia. Steve's nodding.
Yeah, but it's a big market. You will have collectors say, "Here is my oldest, the oldest item that I have."
No, this features Napoleon. The first page, Napoleon dead. Napoleon loses something.
They're able to tell whether it was sort of, ancient done and recent, and these were recent. They first thought it was because people were using ice picks and they accidentally locked it off. But
I hate it when that
wasn't
happens.
the case.
Yeah, but how many preserved bodies are? I mean, are they talking about mummies as well?
How often have they been found that it gets stolen first?
Yeah.
It's happened a few times, but it goes right back to the executioners would sell body parts, and that was one of the body parts they would sell. And
at time of death.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a booming market in ancient Egypt. Tomb robbers in ancient Egypt would go after that. They would go after that particular thing was a prize, often the highest item on the list of things that they were sent to get.
And did it have some did it bring good luck or?
I assume so.
And the problem is also maybe a little bit sexist because I'm assuming it's only male genitalia that was stolen.
No.
The things that these live streams get into, I swear.
No.
Would now be the time for me to point out that tornadoes have struck down in Arkansas? Maybe. Or that, according to the news, it isn't Donald Trump who incited violence in Manhattan on Tuesday when he's arraigned. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has now done that, who has now gone on Twitter and said, assemble on Tuesday.
So is he paying Marjorie Taylor Greene to say that for him so he doesn't get in trouble?
I don't know what she's thinking. I really don't. I think someone should probably tell her and anyone who's listening to her that there's a big difference between 10 overpowered and unsuspecting Capitol guards and the NYPD. There's a big difference between them. The bodies will be 10 feet deep if they try something like that. The NYPD shoots people recreationally. Do you think if they have a reason, they're not going to just broad sweep the street?
That would be I'm not saying that the rioters have any business or protesters, for Trump, but shooting them down is not going to be a good result for anything.
Yeah, especially if they steal their genitalia after they've done it as well. I'm a bit worried now what's going on in the world.
So okay.
If the NYPD opens up on red MAGA hats, I'm not sure my tear ducts will be working that day. I'm really not. But I don't think more than 2 will show up. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene will not show up.
Of course not.
These fascist, proto-fascist leaders are all about. They're all about sending the lemmings to their death.
Should we take a bet on how many people will show up in New York City for him? It's like put it on the table, like bet a box of donuts.
I really don't think it'll be many. There was all sorts of conspiratorial talk on 8chan or on the conservative chat boards. There was all sorts of conspiratorial talk that the reason Trump announced his own arrest early was as a signal to his followers to organize, to give them a week to organize. Now 2 weeks to organize because he is being arraigned on Tuesday. I don't know that I believe that, but that is the scuttlebutt. I just don't see it happening.
All they have to do is announce Tuesday that at 9 a.m. he will be arraigned, and then go pick him up at Monday night at 9 p.m. and do it then. And they go, "Oh, sorry, you missed it. Already done."
The Manhattan DA already pulled a fake out like that. They released a report saying that they would not be in session during the month of April, that would take this subject up again in May. And the next day, they indicted Trump. So they obviously did that to wrong foot everybody. You're absolutely right. They should demand his surrender on, I don't know, Sunday night, early Monday.
But this is all academic at the moment, right? Because he's not there. So
he's not there, and he has not yet said, nor has anyone in his camp said, that he will be there. It's the Manhattan DA who has said they will process him on Tuesday. He has not said that he will agree to that or do it.
Let's get back to genitals. That's more.
Yeah.
Or we could get back to books.
Let's go back to books.
That we should get back to books. What are you all planning on reading next?
We never did that, did we?
No, we never did.
No, we didn't.
We are all actually booktubers.
Apparently so.
I can't believe this chat went to the genital collection market.
Well, I'm going to read a book
I'll
on
start
genital
first.
collection. So
I'll start first, and it has eyeballs. So we're going to go from genitals to eyeballs now.
Okay.
I'm going to try reading for the third time Clarissa, starting tomorrow. And as everybody knows, I've been making some videos. The first time I tried it was sometime in the early 2000s, I think it was. And I got about 300 pages in, and I got shingles in my left eye. And I didn't complete it. And I got it here again, this volume in the UK, and I got about 300 pages in, and I got shingles again in my left eye. So I'm going to read this 50 pages a day all of April. So I'll be starting that first thing in the morning that I'll be starting to read.
aren't you nervous though? I mean, tempting fate. It's the same copy, or
Yeah, it's the same. Well, not the original copy, but the same copy for the second time. So yeah, and if I do get shingles again, then I'll have a wonderful video of me going in my back garden and burning this book.
Reminds me of me saying to wow, she went to Burger King once and had a hamburger, and that evening she had a small stroke. She recovered completely and spent the rest of her life saying that the hamburgers at Burger King caused strokes. So she still went to Burger King, but she'd say, "Oh, I'm not gonna get a hamburger." That's for sure.
Is it worth the effort, Steve?
Absolutely, it is.
Oh, I meant Burger King.
It's not worth shingles. If you start,
I meant is Burger King worth the effort?
Oh no,
Okay.
Burger
Clarissa's worth it. Is it wonderful?
Clarissa is worth it. Burger King is not. No.
The Mysteries of Paris is worth it as well, right?
In the meat processing plant at Burger King, it is a well-documented fact that if a worker falls into the vat, the work shift does not stop. So if you go to Burger King regularly, you have a non-negligible chance that you have eaten Jose.
Hang on. It's my channel. I just should add allegedly. And allegedly, that might be where all the stolen genitalia ends up.
You seem fixated on that.
I am, but I just when I find out something new that I never heard of before, that there's actually an industry, a black market in stolen genitals, it just fascinates me.
Made a killing on it in the 70s.
And rhino genitalia.
The third oldest profession in the world.
Yeah. John's biggest coup was that in the 70s he made what was it, something like 170,000 pounds on Ray Davies' object, and he hadn't even voluntarily surrendered it. It was the hottest thing on the market. Ray Davies doesn't talk about that anymore.
I think it would be if it was a real job, and you're an author, Sean, and if you did this, then it would have fit in with my video about authors and their jobs. It's up there with Jack London and his oyster piracy. So Clarissa, we got a comment about that somewhere. I thought I saw something about DeSantis. All 3,000 pages.
1,500.
Yeah, the Penguin, believe it or not, is abridged.
It's abridged.
Yeah, no one has ever actually done. As far as I know, no one has ever actually done a print version of every single word that Richardson wrote for that Richardson and other people wrote for Clarissa.
This is all of Richardson, though, isn't it?
I have a Kindle version. Is that complete? Maybe.
Yeah, Delphi maybe would be complete, but of course.
Am I really going to want to read 3,000 pages of that?
Probably not.
1,500. Oh, but you know what I do have that I haven't shown yet, like all the French stuff that I was getting. Also, part of that is it's a partial set, but there might be the additional volumes, which I hope they are. It's Reynolds, the Mysteries of the Court of London, 20 volumes, and so that means they're 450 pages each. So it's about 9,000 pages of this Penny Dreadful storyline. But before that is 4 series of the Mysteries of London, which are about 2,500 pages each, give or take.
So it's the Mysteries of London, the
Mysteries of the Court of London.
Court of London.
Yeah.
And this is, these are the ones you've got. But you're missing 4 volumes.
5 volumes,
5 volumes.
Of this one. And there could be still coming the 5 volumes, but a different set, because this was a limited edition set, 165 of 1,000 or something like that.
And Steve, is it more worthwhile, the Mysteries of London compared to the Mysteries of Paris, or?
I wouldn't want to rain on anyone's interests. We're all about respecting the differences here. Whatever Sean declares his
I kind of doubt, Steve. I kind of doubt, Steve, that you've read all of the Mysteries of the Court of London, the whole thing.
Well, no, I haven't. I also haven't taken a knife and fork to the sewage in the local dump. I don't need to. This is a waste of your reading time. It is a waste of your reading time.
Well, this could be called that too.
No, it couldn't be. It is the founding Western novel.
Now I'm pissed off, but it's not the complete. I didn't realize. I thought this was the complete.
But somebody mentioned in the chat that there is statistical correlation between outbreaks of shingles and stress.
Yeah.
And you are certainly going to have that when you are picking up this book. You're going to be thinking that it's going to cause an outbreak of shingles. So it might not be worth it.
Might not.
Well, I think I've had a little more stress in the last couple of years than this will give me.
Well, I just got to hope that you don't
be careful. If you get another outbreak of shingles, be careful. Be as stoic as you want. Sit through it as much as you want. But if it starts to move anywhere near your eyes, go to the hospital, because you can lose your eyes.
I know, because I am losing sight in this eye anyway, and I do get blindness in it. Because it's damaged the nerves.
The rest of your body, it is a sheer endurance contest. There's nothing that can help. There's no way to describe the pain or the discomfort. You just have to sit through it.
Well, hopefully it doesn't move to the genitals though, as well. So
poor Mark. We've scarred him. We've scarred him for
life.
Me. Oh God.
Oh, putty cat.
Now I'm scarred for life.
Jenny's reading something called indie series called Levantria by A.P. Bezic, based on British folklore. To try. Okay.
I don't know that at all. Jenny, where did you learn about that? Is it self-published? Is it indie? I don't know about that at all.
It's an indie series. Oh God, there's loads of them. They all pop in at once. MP Hunt's just joined the chat in time to hear about the black market in genitals. Well, there you go. That's what that. None of it's been worth anything up till now, but that's been the best bit.
The mention of that subject froze Mark in place. He can't think of anything else now. Well,
yeah, all right.
If it were my own, I would have to order some sort of discount.
Well, I think we can see that. I think we can see the prices we've got, judging by the small pile of books in my background, so, compared to the rest of you. So
look at that thing; it's contemplating homicide.
Yeah, I should have picked up the abridged version of Les Mis. Oh, James, come on! It's a wonderful book.
No, it's not. But if you're going to experience it, you really have to experience the whole thing. But it's not a wonderful book. It's almost a complete waste.
Well,
of time.
I did a reread.
Christine Donahue's version is really nice. I really enjoyed it.
Of Count of Monte Cristo, and it was a buddy read with several others, and I was the only one that completed it. So far, between me and Mark, I'm the only one that completed the Mysteries of Paris as well.
The great critic Peter Ackroyd said about Les Miserables that it must be a great book because it sure as hell isn't a good one. I agree with him completely about that. James Abbiati, have you been talking with Al Ohm? They make ineffectual antivirals for shingles. You need to know you're going to get it in order for them to have any chance of doing it. Once you have shingles, there is no effect whatsoever. You have to just put anti-irritants on it to basically freeze the skin and stop it from itching, and wait 15 days.
Jenny's back to you there. It's self-published.
And don't get it in your trigeminal nerve. That's for sure. Don't get in your and let it affect your trigeminal nerve. That's called the suicide disease, and that's where people commit suicide because of the pain. It's worse than any other pain, apparently, and I can attest to that.
It's pretty bad. James Abiati says he had shingles and took meds, and that is because he is a Bolshevik. That is Bolshevik propaganda. I'm sure you had shingles and took meds. I'm sure, but the meds didn't help.
Yeah.
It's an inflammation on the skin. Meds don't help. They're about a week too late.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about it. So.
I don't know, Doc. I don't know either.
I know that I suffer from psoriasis. I was going to say cirrhosis, but psoriasis, and nothing really helps. It calms it down or whatnot, but it doesn't go away, and it never will.
I was actually wondering an hour ago how long it would take this chat to get around to psoriasis.
We're old men. What else are we going to talk about? I had to get up and pee 5 times last night, and what?
I raised the subject of what you're reading next.
We got distracted by genitals again.
Then I've got to mention. I've mentioned shingles, so I've got to mention cellulitis.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
It's like we're like one of those families where the parents say, "Whatever you do, don't ask Grandpa how he's doing," because you're gonna have a long list. So
there's always a bench against a sunny wall in any town in Sicily. There's a bench against a sunny wall where there are 4 old men who do this all day long.
Clarissa, right? Greg.
Okay, I'm doing an audiobook of Gore Vidal's Julian.
No kidding. Who reads it?
There's 3 narrators. There's a narrator for Julius. Oh God, there's two of the commenters that are going back and forth. So you have 3 narrators for all the characters. They all do a pretty good job. I'm liking it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I did Creation, which is what the nephew of Zarathustra.
Oh yeah, with Herodotus as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like that one, but this one's good. I've got like 40 minutes left in the book, and I'll finish that tonight. But pretty darn good. I mean, Gore Vidal comes out and says, "I did not do as much research as Robert Graves," but he gets it close enough. I love his anti-religious jibes in that book. He just I could just see the real life Gore Vidal poking fun at religious people.
We often did. There are recordings of him doing that on talk shows where he would go on and on. But I wonder, is there any chance that at some point in the Diluvian past he did an audio of Julian?
I don't know.
He would.
So it's a long book, so I don't think he would have read the whole thing.
No.
It's like 20 hours professional, so no,
and
I doubt it.
3 narrators do the 3 main characters?
Yes.
Right?
There's Julian and the two elderly scholars going back and forth talking about his memoirs and sniping at each other. And
I was just at the Brattle the other day. I saw the Loeb Classical Library set of Libanius, who's one of the main characters in that book, and I had it in my hand, and I thought, well, no, the fact that I like Julian doesn't mean Libanius is interesting. He's not. So just
probably not. But it's a fun book. I mean, it's a fun book. It's fun story. It's not great, but
I've never read any of his fiction. I've read his nonfiction, but didn't he do a novel about 1920s Hollywood? He
did a whole series that started with Aaron Burr, went on to Lincoln, and then it goes up to about 4 other books, somewhere, maybe 3 other books in different periods. I've read Aaron Burr, which was pretty good. I really love the one Creation, and Julian's pretty good. I have Lincoln on my shelf, and I'll eventually get to that one. But
that whole American series stars multi-generations of self-insert characters. Vidal wasn't content with just inserting himself once. He's multi-generation.
Is there one that deals with 20s Hollywood?
Yes.
Yes, I do believe so.
Oh, okay, that's the one. If I read any fiction by him, that'll be the first one I'd read, I think.
I don't think there's any obligation to read those books in any kind of order. There's really no connection other than.
I'm happy to send you the ebook. You don't read ebooks. So...
I'm also reading this one.
Oh! I've got the first 4 now, and I really want to see how the final generation Clark works out.
Now, Greg, I have the same question for you. You have the Andrew Stevens cover there. Have you had that book the whole time?
No. I saw a set of 4 at the thrift store. They were like 99 cents each. So I said, I should just pick these up. So I have like the first 4 or 5 of these. I'm missing, I think, 2, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh my God. Where is Shawn coming up with all these covers that I've never seen before?
Well, like Michael K. Vaughan said he was going to read them, and I go, I've never read them all. So I went on to eBay, and I think it was, the first bid of 4 that are really rough shape, but the first 4 for £2.50 with shipping. And so I put the bid in and thought, well, if I'm meant to get it, I'll get it, and if not, I won't. And I got it.
I wonder how long that title is going to be allowed to be used on a book. So
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I think the historical accuracy of this book is maybe a little on the thin side.
Bit like the Sackett's, probably.
But something? I'm enjoying this. It's a fun little.
I wish I had that cover. That book's in perfect shape. It still has the sheen on it.
It does. Now I had to put, if you can, the spine is cracked. Someone had read it before. I had to put some tape on this because the corner was peeling back, and I've experienced that as I go through this book, this cover would eventually come off as I was reading it. Just
that cover takes me back. Because when Deb cheated on me with Stella Stevens, I got back at her by cheating on her with Andrew Stevens.
But no, these are so far. This is a lot of fun.
So you need to get the what's her name? The actress's sister that wrote The Bitch. So
Jackie Collins.
Yes. This book will be retitled The Unparented. Because we don't want to traffic it.
Yeah, is he illegitimate, or is he just a horrible person?
He is actually an illegitimate son, and that features very heavily in the plot. And it's a very important plot part that yes, his mother was not married to the man who fathered him.
I enjoyed the North and South one, so I might try the Kent Family Chronicles.
North and South is pretty good. It's pretty enjoyable.
It's fun.
It is too. It's what Greg says. You just have to enjoy it.
There were loads of those type of sagas, though, and they were all.
I mean, he doesn't. It's not a gross mistake, but you just get the idea that there are no real there's not a lot of historical detail in this.
Didn't have any Google in those days, you see, and you couldn't be bothered to always traipse to the library.
No, but you know something.
It's like Sackett's.
Like the Sackett's, I was thinking the same thing. Like the first Sackett book is like, oh my God,
it's character and plot.
Pick up a history book.
it's character and plot. He's got some things going on in the proper time, so he did some very elementary research, but he doesn't go into the details about like the inns and how they pour the mead and not grog, the beers. None of that detail. It's just character and plot. It's fun,
All right, just a couple of comments then. Do old men still do sex? Well, I guess if they've still got their genitalia, they probably
yes, I knew that. That's the only thing that Mark's going to be thinking about.
I've been holding on to it the whole time. Oh, sorry. I thought you were finished.
No, I have an in-live book group on Wednesday, so I have to finish this one first before I finish The Bastard.
Was it the Magnificent?
I'm sorry. This is The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post by Allison Pataki.
Uh-huh.
I'm only like the first 20% in, and I'm going like.
Is she anything to the Patakis of New York?
I don't know. I have not. I don't read the autobiography first. So, but it's historical about Marjorie Post. You know, it starts off in Mar-a-Lago of all places in 1968 with a different president coming to visit Mar-a-Lago, and I'm thinking, you know, I don't think that was a mistake that your opening scene is in Mar-a-Lago, but we'll see. I'm not really thrilled with it so far. It's just not captivating me. I might be the wrong demographic to read this book. Who knows? I mean, but I'm only 20% in, so I'm being a little bit unkind, saying, you know, book needs a little bit of room to grow, but we'll see. I'll finish it anyway.
I just want to ask Steve something, because this was another book that was given to me, but I wanted to get to reading it. But did you receive this? It looks really good.
No.
It looks really good.
No, I never got that. What is the publication date?
2023. Just recently, I think it was. Mark, you told me about it. I put it on my list, and
well, I'm sure I saw it somewhere. I don't know. It looks interesting. Oh, James's next read is A Time of Gifts. Wonderful. He's joining us.
Well, I put it in my wish list, so if anybody really wants me to read that this month, they know what to do.
Well, that's what Steve's doing right now. He's on there. He's surfing on it.
No. There's a tornado watch for downtown Chicago in the next hour.
Tornado watch for Chicago.
If that were to happen, that could be 100,000 people. That's pretty bad. that's pretty bad. That caught my eye while I've been.
Well, where's
keeping
Harry
an eye on
Dresden? It's Harry Dresden's probably doing something that's screwing up the weather. I like the fact that was set in Chicago. I don't see, I'm sure there's lots of books, but it's not very often I come across books that are set in Chicago. And I like Chicago. I'm sure there's lots, but I just haven't read many.
There's tons of books and there's nothing to like.
Oh, really?
No good books in Chicago.
No, there are plenty of good books set in Chicago, but there's nothing to like about Chicago.
Oh.
Can I just say all views expressed by contributors to this video are their own?
I came this close to moving to Chicago. I wanted my wife, instead of Virginia, I wanted us to move to Chicago.
Isn't Chicago the Windy City?
Yes.
Yeah.
So why would it be a surprise?
Only when I go there and have beans.
The Windy City, the city of broad shoulders. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but why should it not have tornadoes and stuff if it's the Windy City?
No, it can.
To the city.
It can. It's just you perk up and take notice when there's a tornado watch for a city of 3 million people. If a tornado were to touch down, tornadoes they're drawn to rivers.
It's not normal then.
They like to run around. They like to walk up the path of a river.
Yeah.
They like to travel in the convex body of a river. If a tornado struck down outside of Chicago and went up that river, that would be millions of dollars of damage, and who knows how many people dead. I mean, this is touching down at 3 p.m. Midwestern time. That means everyone is at work in Chicago. And I'd be willing to bet that half those people at least have no idea what to do in the event of a tornado watch.
Have they got a metro in Chicago?
They do.
Oh.
Yeah.
They have the L. It's fun.
Yeah, and that's actually
The L wouldn't be good though, would it? If that's elevated.
Yeah.
No.
But
if you're
underground.
On the elevated when the tornado strikes, that's a good way to lose your genitals.
Hey, you can sell them on the black market though when they're off.
Sell them on the black market.
Oh my God. Well, MJ's aging via this chat. I guess this is Gore Vidal. Literary snobs making fun of religious people is so rare. It's a terrible thing to say. Of course, Mark does. It's probably...
that was about Alexis's earlier comment.
Probably. Well, she said she wanted to see a show of hands, and I sneakily gave her a show of my hands. So there you go.
But yeah, you're the only one that saw the
My hands are both busy.
My hands are clean.
Busy with what? Busy with what, Steve? You lost it like 20 years ago.
No,
Cut it off, no? Hold it on the back mark.
To Alexis's original question, my response is going to be, I thought we had plans for later. It's your own fault. You ask a question like that, you deserve a response like that.
Steve sold his, and that's where Hyde Cottage comes from.
It was at a deep discount. The curse of the Irish, I'm afraid.
You just sold it in the back room of the old Odeon in Leeds, right? So not so rare sad people.
Fascination, that's all. If you have like a bog body, so 10,000 years ago, someone falls or is killed and falls in a bog. They get sucked down by the subduction motion, and the bog's chemicals preserve them completely. And it's unbelievable. They can't be hunted. They're invulnerable to environmental changes. They're 10 feet down. And completely.
So who steals their genitals then?
No one does. That's what I mean. The person who uncovers the body, the first thing they're going to think of is, oh, well, if they're an archaeologist, the first thing they might think of is, let me look at his skin, his teeth, his eyes, the sorts of things that we don't get in this kind of detail. But if you're a normal person, a man, the first thing you're going to think of is, let me look at his junk.
What? Yeah, maybe, but it's not going to be, oh, well, now I'm going to cut it off and sell it on eBay.
No, but when Steve was talking about the bodies being preserved, there's talk when they discover these bog bodies, they often call homicide because the body looks fresh enough to say, this is a murder victim. And homicide comes in, looks at it, and then I guess they call a special. No, this person died thousands of years ago.
Very often they are still a murder victim, but homicide still says no. There's no.
I don't think they're going to worry about a 2,000-year-old homicide. But no, did you ever read The Bog People, Steve?
I did.
That's a really good book. It's a really good book.
It is. He comes at the end. It's like, okay, that explains a bit about these bog people.
I'm sorry. Did you ever read The Bog People, Mark? Oh no, no, you didn't. Oh well.
No, I'm just avoiding the opportunity of making probably an inappropriate joke. I was
surprised that the New York Review of Books? Isn't that where you read it, Greg?
Yes,
that's where I got it. Yeah, I've got it on ebook from the NRI. Yeah. But I haven't read it yet.
I like that. Just floored me. That why would they do that? Great if they did, but it's just random. Sort of an odd choice.
I'm not sure what this is in relation to with Barry Lyndon.
No idea.
Now,
but Sean, in response to your comment, that's one of the things that I love about the NYRB Classic is that you don't know. It's obviously some people and on the editorial meetings thinking, well, what would be cool to bring back and give another life to? That their unpredictability is wonderful.
They're just really expensive here. Or generally they can be really expensive in the UK for some reason.
Yeah. At least in the United States, they usually have a yearly sale where you can buy it at 40% off cover price.
Yeah. And so does
you buy like $50 worth.
Collection does too, but I can never. You can get it for a song 2 or 3 times a year. The Criterion Collection, Blu-rays, and here they're like 3 times the amount.
Brandy's trying to ask a cheeky "Has Steve read it?" question.
She's not even on one of my own live streams, and she's asking a "Have you read?" question.
I know. Jenny was promised an earwax extraction video.
He's trouble with a capital T.
Somebody did ask about earwax earlier, so I guess that's the next topic.
Sarah Paretsky's books are set in Chicago.
Are they? Oh, okay. I didn't know. I am familiar. I've never read hers, but I was going to ask if I was going to do it privately to Steve. But what about 30s, 40s Chicago PDs or not PDs detectives? I'm sure there's some, but I'd love to know other ones.
Uh-huh.
Well, I just think that Chicago has leached out its regional identity in the last few decades. So I never know what people mean when they say, "Oh, this is Chicago." You know, I never know that. Oh, goodness gracious.
Under 5% risk.
That's not what the radar looks like, but I would hope that's true. I definitely hope it's that low. The radar looks like a dead certainty, and warnings have gone out in Chicago, which they wouldn't typically do for under 5%. But I hope that that's right, because I don't want to think about it.
When I used to go into Chicago to pick up books, like it was pretty well a monthly thing. We'd always tune as we get into near Chicago for the local stations, and they'd always give the body count for the night, how many dead have been pulled off the streets, and that was always interesting.
Where was that?
Chicago. They would give a nightly body count early in the morning, like about 5 or 6 a.m. of the numbers of bodies they pulled off the street. Or
Iowa and Western Illinois, they know what to do if there's a tornado warning. I don't think people in Chicago know. I don't know that they'd know where to go or what to do if it was suddenly imminent. So I'm hoping that it's not. That would be great. My little dog is going nuts, which probably means I need to go.
The dog's got to go.
Well, I don't want to push it. I do whatever she says.
Well, I'm just going to say, just to end this on, then I'm going to.
We haven't get to Mark. Mark also has to tell us what he's reading.
Well, I think Mark and I are going to read a book about a harlot.
Yeah, and Time of Gift, of course. But you didn't mention yours, Steve. But I suppose it's probably too long a list. So.
Oh, look at that! Your paperback. Oh, wow, how wonderful. No, I have a at least to start with for this afternoon. There's a new book on political divisions in the American Revolution, a study from the University of Minnesota Press or something like that. Publicist got in touch with me, would really like it if I would read it. I'm perfectly happy to do. It's right up my alley, so I'm perfectly happy to do that. It looks fairly detailed. It doesn't look like it's for a general audience, so I'll just. That'll be the next thing that I read. I don't know what I'll read tonight.
And is there much new to say on that kind of stuff, or
no? It'll just be
when you were talking about the book on the war against Japan. I was thinking, with these kind of things, you need those micro stories now because all the other stuff is just so well
aren't known, but also the broader stories. A good historian will bring a whole new set of views to that sort of thing. That's great if they do. I've read too many histories and biographies this year that didn't do that, where the historian literally rolls up to a subject and thinks, well, all I need to do is say that I'm here. I don't actually need to do anything. I just got a finished copy of a great big history that's coming out next month. I read the advanced copy and it was exactly that. It was the historian just saying, well, I'm just gonna knock off a Greyhound bus itinerary here and then I'll be done. I'll read the finished copy and see if maybe I missed something, but the publicist assures me that this book on political divisions in the colonies is really good, is really worth the time.
Well, and Steve, didn't you tell me for my birthday you're going to be reading my poetry book as well, aren't you?
It's not likely to happen. It's not likely to happen. Remember how I started this video? Contemporary poetry and I don't get along.
I know how much you like poetry that's written more recently.
Canadian poetry, especially.
We just don't get along. Contemporary poetry and I, we just don't get along. And it's been my lifelong experience here, 28 years of experience, that if a friend writes a book and you already know you're not inclined to like it, don't read it. Then you can say, I haven't read it. Instead of the minute you've read it and the minute they know that, well, then better just to avoid it. You write an 800-page historical novel about the Battle of the Plains of Abraham and I'll be your buddy for life. No, Al, we were doing so well. We were doing so well. We had reconciled.
And now you're leaving. So, but I think we'll probably finish up here anyway, because Lord knows what trouble we're in already. I mean, Elizabeth is gunning for us. We're gonna make a video. We're gonna get dinged later. You've been mentioned in the video from bookies. and
she's
we're
going to go to Elizabeth the Merciless mode.
Yeah.
At least, the very least that I can console myself with is that she's an adult with an adult sense of humor. So it will not be 40 minutes of F-bombs directed at me, which would be great. It would be absolutely great. If I could never have that experience again on BookTube, that would be great.
You just spoiled my Monday video.
The real video for Sean's birthday bash was exactly that.
So you're basically saying you'd rather have your genitals stolen out from underneath you than have to go through that kind of experience again, right?
You have scarred Mark for life.
I honestly, I'm going to be Googling this. I'm going to be looking
video. I'll have to look it up.
I need a technical term for this. You see, I'm going to have to be looking it up. You see,
I had thought originally that I would spend a little disposable income on Sean's birthday list.
Hey, Elizabeth is still here.
But now I know what I'm going to be buying on eBay and sending to Mark. Now I know what I'm going to be doing. That absolutely has to happen. It has to not only has to happen.
He doesn't need any more genitals. He doesn't need any more genitals. So,
what kind of comment is that? Like, oh, Mark's got 3 already.
They're in a jar in the closet, but you know.
Yeah, dear, oh dear. No, it's not been a total fail.
People are so bloodthirsty. These comments are so bloodthirsty.
Oh dear.
I don't see how you could consider a live stream that covered such a broad range of topics a fail anyway.
Well, Steve,
where else are you going to go for these kind of discussions?
Steve, what are you doing tomorrow, your time, at about 1:30 to 2 o'clock?
I have no idea. I did a monitor meeting today, so that's off the table for tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be torrentially raining at that time tomorrow, which probably means I won't have any Wi-Fi. I think the rain is supposed to start tonight and just blast.
We could set up about here between Steve in one corner and Brandy in the other corner tomorrow. on my birthday bash. That would be a great birthday gift for me.
I'm just hoping that Elizabeth does not even tangentially defend censorship. Much as I love A Critical Dragon, he was tangentially defending censorship, whether he realized it or not. And that's really dangerous, especially for book people. They should have no apologists at all. There should not be anything that even comes close to apologizing. But we shall see.
I have a feeling we're probably more in trouble for our things on Doctor Who and James Bond and why women are weaker than men physically and this kind of stuff, probably. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
The Jodie Whittaker Doctor Who was a failure. But it wasn't a failure because of Jodie Whittaker. It was a failure because of one episode. Mm-hmm. Just one episode that retconned the whole of Doctor Who. That said, it'd
be interesting if the writer of that episode was male or female. What's the betting it was male?
He was male. Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, he was male. He was kowtowing to Twitter politics and saying not only must a woman be in the center of the show, but she must have always been the center of the show. The only Doctor who's ever been has been this Doctor. That's maddening. Absolutely maddening. 4 men walked into a pub and said, "Anybody care to buy some genitals?"
Opening.
Right here. Just open your clothes.
Well,
Steve, where else would you go for these kinds of discussions? Answer the back room of the Leeds Odeon.
Yes, the back room of the Odeon.
You notice that Mark doesn't move the camera too far in one direction because there's shelves with bottles on, with specimens in. And you know what the specimens are.
Yes, reading this life says the 4 Horsemen OnlyFans. We're one step away from that. We're absolutely one step away from that. But my little baby is nuts. She on the bedclothes, so she is definitely signaling that she wants to go outside.
No worries.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go.
Well, I think we're all going, to be honest.
Yeah, I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours. Yeah.
That's the thing. We're all men of a certain age. We have to move now, right? So
yeah, well, I have to the nurse didn't come today, so I didn't get a catheter put in. So I have to go.
Oh my god! Oh my god! All right,
only
okay.
a matter of time. It was only a matter. It was a short trip from psoriasis to catheter. So.
Well, thank you everybody who commented and watched and everything. It was great.
Thank you for having me.
Apologies, I couldn't get through all the comments, of course, but hope you enjoyed it, and we shall see you all again soon. Do take care.
Well, join me for my birthday bash.
Yes, join Sean's birthday bash tomorrow, and perhaps, who knows, if there's no torrential rain in Boston and Steve's got internet, he might even pop in to show off his genital collection.
If you go to Sean's birthday bash, it might be a good idea to get him a present.
Get him a present from the list. The list is below.
He has a list of the things he wants, so that you won't have to get him a gift certificate.
And then next week it's my place without the genitals.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Without the genital collection.
Sorry, I'm ending the broadcast. Bye.
Bye.